Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live here on the Voice of College Football channel. My name is Tony Altimore. I'll be with you for the next little bit as we get to talk about Pac-12 football. Now, like all of our shows here on the Voice of College Football, this show is for you guys. So we want to have the time to interact with you guys on the show. So we're going to do that in a couple of ways. First, we want to have you guys call in. So we're going to publish the link after we go through all the games, and then we want to chat with you guys about the show, about the game, and here on the show. Then we want to have you guys participate in the chat. So the more of you, the better. Participate in the chat or leave comments down below, and we'd love to hear what you think. And another way you can reach out to us very easily is you can engage any of us on Twitter. Now, if you have questions that you want us to answer and want the show group to talk about, feel free. You can either send us a Venmo or PayPal that helps support the channel, or you can go down right on the $ under the chat and do a super chat, which helps support the Voice of College Football. So the reason that we do that is because it's an amazing, amazing privilege that Mark Rogers gives us the opportunity to be a part of this channel. And so we have to help support it. And so that's one of the best ways that we can. So we really appreciate everybody who can help support the channel. It means the world. So let's get the group here in and talk about the games going on. Guys, welcome to the show. What a week we had.
You're both muted, by the way.
What's up, Tony?
What's happening, guys?
What'd you guys think of this week of football?
It was
I don't
crazy.
think anything interesting happened that I can recall. And I watched a couple of good UCLA basketball games so far. No losses there. I think we're looking pretty good. And football, I have selective amnesia, so don't really know.
Selective amnesia about Bruin football. Well, I think Cal basketball and USC basketball have a little selective amnesia too, so that's all right. I think you're forgiven.
I think this is all that news we heard about the big reset happening. I think that was this weekend. They meant Pac-12 football was the big reset because we saw some teams fall pretty far.
They did. All right, guys. So let's, first of all, what a week this was, because the Pac-12 has more teams ranked in the college football playoff ranking than any other conference.
That is surprising. That is pretty amazing. A good accomplishment. Didn't know that.
I love it. With Pac-12 is 6, SEC has 5, ACC has 4, Big Ten has 3.
Well, we have these 6 teams. We've been talking about 6 teams almost every week about how good we are, and it's just a matter of time, etc. And I think that all the dust is starting to settle, and these teams are actually finally getting, we've been waiting for Oregon State to get some recognition, and finally they're getting that.
The Bees are getting some love, and as Will and D points out, where are the Cougs aren't far behind. It's pretty wild. It's a great season for the Cougs too. Now, one of these wins was particularly big, and you guys know one of the things that we do is the Pac-12 is the best craft beer of any region in the country. So this is totally non-sponsored, no money here, but LBC Trojan, who spent decades as an expert in the beer industry, is here to help us learn about what are the best beers. And every week, if a Pac-12 team does something great, he awards them the beer they need to raise in celebration. So LBC, who deserves some celebration this week?
Well, I think you know who gets some celebration, and that's why Chris is talking about UCLA basketball. We've got a friend out in the SEC. He talked about Kentucky all summer long, and he was talking them up for probably the first half of the season, and now he's talking basketball. So that's what happens with these basketball schools that sometimes play football. But let me tell you about Arizona. They're a basketball school that last weekend played a little football. And Arizona's prize is Tombstone Brewing's All the Hops Double IPA. This legendary town in the Arizona desert is known as the town that's tough, that's too tough to die. And if you ever watched that movie Tombstone, Jaden DeLora was the perfect Wyatt Earp, and he popped a cap in Johnny Ringo, a.k.a. DTR. He outdueled Johnny Ringo, 22 for 28, 315 yards, and 2 TDs. And Johnny Ringo, DTR, came up a little bit short with his inconsistent passing and Arizona, a 19-point double-digit dog on the road. It's only appropriate that the double-digit road dog deserves a double IPA from Tombstone Brewing. So cheers, Cats, for bearing down on the Bruins.
Bear down, Cats. What a great, I mean, it was a great win for the program. We're going to talk about Arizona a little more in a few minutes, but to the Zona, we have some great Zona fans out there that watch the show, and you guys, hats off, bear down. I can't quite, I don't know what's the bear hand signal, but you guys deserve it. Congrats. Bear down on that. Now another thing, big news. Now, some people call it the circle of suck. Some people call it the circle of sicko, and some people call it the circle of strength. Guys, only two conferences in major football have completed their circles, and we're one of them. So in case you guys aren't familiar with the circle of strength or the circle of suck or the circle of sicko, depending on your perspective, as you guys know, let's quickly walk through the Pac-12. Oregon beat Colorado, who beat Cal, who beat Arizona, who beat UCLA,
You're welcome.
who beat Utah, who beat USC, who beat Oregon State, who beat Wazoo, who beat Stanford, who beat Arizona State, who beat Washington, who beat Oregon. We have completed our circle, guys. So it's kind of going around the internet. What do you guys think about the Pac-12 circle of sicko strength suck?
It's nothing new, right? The Pac-12 is constantly beating up on itself. It's been the same thing forever. When USC was rolling, it would always be a Pac-12 school that would pop and knock those Pete Carroll teams, usually at Washington State or Oregon State. When you had those great Oregon teams, you would have Stanford or you would have another team pop them off. So it's nothing new in our conference, right? We don't get the respect we deserve, but we know that we usually beat up on each other, and that's cost a lot of great teams not to make the playoffs.
How different do the Huskies feel right now if they don't have that loss to Arizona State?
Oh, it's got to be killing them because they get shellacked in the desert.
Well, Oregon's having flashbacks because under Chip Kelly and Mark Helfrich, there was an 8-year period. And in November, they were 22-8. But it always seemed to be that game that would derail their season. They lost 4 times to Stanford, twice to USC, once down the desert to Arizona, and I think another time to the Beavers. So I guarantee you that Oregon fans didn't see that one coming with Washington, didn't really respect the Huskies with that border war, and now that one's got to hurt, and we got to see how they're going to regroup for this game coming up at home against Utah. Huge game now.
To the folks saying, I saw some Buckeye said, newsflash, every conference beats up on each other. Yeah, no, nobody in the pansy Big Ten West is beating up on anybody worthwhile. That's really cute idea, though. But there's only 2 conferences that have completed their circle of suck or strength or sicko, depending on your perspective. We're also going to give some love to the Pac-12's partner in crime in many things, the Ivy League, where Brown beat Penn, who beat Yale, who beat Princeton, who beat Dartmouth, who beat Columbia, who beat Harvard, who beat Cornell, who beat Brown. And while we might have a 5-way tie, they may next week have a 4-way tie that's unbreakable. So that's going to be real interesting. We'll see what they do. Buckeye Mike, it depends. You'd have to actually look each one. You can certainly look on the internet, use Google. They'll show you. But yeah, there are only 2 conferences that have completed their circle, so it's kind of fun. So guys, let's get into the games. We talked a little bit about Arizona, the big winners. Wazoo, friend of the show, Chancellor Chilton, celebrating some great season this year. They're going bowling, and they're going to Arizona, who's not out of a bowl yet. What do we think? Can the Cougs get the Cats, or is it going to be another wild night in the desert?
Chris, you drew the short straw. You're going first this week.
All right, that's fine. So yeah, obviously Arizona beat UCLA last week in DTR's worst game of the season, and big ups to the Cats for that win. They can actually now win out and go bowling. And I think if they actually pull this game off against Washington State, it looks kind of similar to what they did against UCLA in the sense that I think they need to play against a quarterback who doesn't have a great game because the thing that's sort of lost in again, it is a great win, but we still ran the ball all over them and they still can't stop the run. There's nothing that changes my mind on that point that we've harped on all year. And, I think, the only offenses in the conference that Arizona's held under 45 points are Colorado and UCLA. Cal scored 49. So UCLA's loss is really, really bad. So yeah, and Wazoo's shown that they can run the ball against teams that aren't necessarily great defensively. They had 300 yards against Stanford. So, I think that Arizona comes down a little bit after their big win. Again, congrats to them. But I think we remember who they are a little bit more this week. Washington State kind of turns the dagger in UCLA fans a little bit and shows them how we should have taken care of business against Arizona, and wins on the road something like 38-28 or something.
So you're going Cougs. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct.
Yeah. How about those Cats? You'd mentioned if they win the next two games, the Cougars and hosting Arizona State, they go bowling. And Jaden DeLora found his mojo. That guy is so fun to watch. He is like a Tasmanian devil, the way he runs in that backfield. And he throws a freaking laser on point. And those wide receivers are so much fun to watch. And I know USC got a bunch of crap for only winning 45-37 down in Tucson. But to see what happened at UCLA, I was really surprised UCLA only scored 28 points. And Zach Charbonnet, I don't know if he was sipping Chardonnay before the game, but hey, he only got 185 yards. I thought, from what I heard about the Arizona defense, run defense, he would certainly get 225. But you know what? Credit Arizona. They kept everything in front of them. And they said, okay, DTR, we're going to give Zach his yards, but let's see you beat us, DTR. And he couldn't do it. So credit Arizona. They're going to go down to the desert. They know they got the next two games at home, and they've got their super goal in front of them, qualifying for a bowl game. And guess what? Washington State doesn't have a particularly great running game, but this is a long trip for Washington State. I like Cam Ward, but I like Jaden DeLora a lot better. And yeah, Washington State's got a good defense, but not in the desert against Jaden DeLora. I see Arizona beating Washington State by 4 points. I'm looking like a 37-33 game, Arizona.
Oh, you guys both make really great points. Really make great points. The issue I have is with the defenses on both these. Washington State's defense is superior to Arizona State. Arizona's is, and I don't really see it as being close. I do see that Jed Fish has his squad improving. I'm with you, Rick. I think this defense is getting better, but I still think that Watson will get enough yards on the ground for this one, and Wazoo does squeak it out. I'm thinking probably, let's just call it 30-30 Wazoo. I think it'll be lower than we think.
Tim, I got to go with you. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Wazoo is going to pull it off in the end. I think they have an underrated team. I love the Arizona story. I'm all on for the bear down excitement. And really, Jed Fish has done a fantastic job that we knew he would. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Arizona finds a way to pull it off, but I think Washington State's pretty good, and I'm taking the Cougs to win. All right, next up, our almost Pac-12 team who has had some struggles with the Pac-12 this year. Real quick, let's do Notre Dame and Boston College.
Really quick.
Yeah, real quick.
Boston College is 3-7 and 7th in the ACC. They did beat NC State last week, but Notre Dame takes care of business and gets ready to go into the Coliseum to play SC.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of fans that are complaining, much like UCLA fans were complaining 2 weeks ago, that They're ranked too low at number 12, and they should have been higher than that. And we saw what happened out in the desert. It should be pointed out that there are 2 one-loss teams from the ACC, that being North Carolina and Clemson, both one-loss, and it's to Notre Dame. Wow, go figure. The team that lost to Stanford has those 1 wins over Notre Dame. Now, I want Notre Dame to be 8-3 when they come to the Coliseum. Can they pull this off? They should. They're 21-point favorites at home. So, Domers, don't blow it. That being said, I see Notre Dame. It's going to be a close game at first, but they pull away. I got the Domers by 17.
Domers crush them easily.
Yeah, Tim, I think you're right. I think Notre Dame just rolls. Now my dad went to a Catholic school, and he used to tell me rule number 1 is you don't lose to the Jesuits. So know that the priests at Notre Dame will make sure that Marcus Freeman is well aware of that instruction. So moving on, guys, this isn't a game that we got our picture got screwed up a little bit. Washington, Colorado. Now, just so you guys know, here in our little Easter eggs, we have promoted Mike Sanford from Colorado based on how classy he was at the SC Colorado game with Travis Dye. He's actually made our picture now, so we're giving him some credit. But as the Dogs head into play Colorado at home, does Colorado have any chance here?
So Washington's coming off that huge win in Austin, obviously, right? Handing the Ducks a rare loss at home for them. And yeah, are they possibly looking ahead to Washington State? Does Colorado have a chance? No, they don't. Washington wins by a ton.
Yeah, I mean, Washington, believe it or not, still has a slight chance of qualifying for the Pac-12 championship games. A lot of things have to happen. The first thing that has to happen is they got to take care of business at home against Colorado. They're 31-point favorites, and USC just beat them by 38 at the Coliseum. Colorado lost to Oregon State by 33 up in Corvallis. This ain't going to be a pretty thing. Washington's going to roll Colorado, and they'll cover that spread.
Yeah, I'm with everybody in Colorado until you prove me wrong. I'm just sorry all season and last season and probably going forward. So you guys get serious about football. I'm gonna pick the Huskies, especially at home.
Yeah, I think you're right. Huskies are going to demolish them. Huskies by like 28 in this one.
Yeah,
they're going to use it as a great tune-up. All right, an interesting one, guys. Arizona State has been resurgent. They've been looking better. And they've got the Beavs coming to town. The Beavs are back in the rankings, number 23. We've got Jonathan Smith, the master coach, but we've also seen Sean Iguano doing great things at ASU. Will the post Veterans Day spirit of Pat Tillman power them past, or is the jackhammer going to do his thing?
So, as the strongest resident Beaver homer on the panel,
you are
Arizona State.
We all love the Beavs, though.
Arizona State's not as bad as Cal or Stanford or Colorado, but sometimes they really try to be. And I'm going to trust Jonathan Smith to keep the team focused and not look ahead to Oregon, which could end up being a great game next week in Corvallis. And Oregon State, they take care of business and they win like 31-23 or something like that.
Yeah, the Beavs, if you recall, they cracked the top 25 a couple weeks ago, and then they had to go to Washington, and they lost a close one in that windy, rainy game on a Friday night, which dropped them out of the top 25. They won last week, and now they're back in the top 25, rightly so, at 7-3. They beat Arizona State. They roll into the Civil War next week, the following week at 8-3, hosting Oregon. So they have everything in front of them as well. They're well coached. They're going to go down there and they're going to take care of business at Arizona State. I'm confident in that. I see Oregon State winning by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be. I think all of us. Who was it? Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. I heard earlier this year. Some philosophers said that if the Beavs are wrong, I don't want to be right. I can't remember who it was, but I can't see there's any chance that this defense is going to let up. They've been strong. I think that the Bees pull away in the second half. It's just they're just too much. I mean, you look at the defense. I mean, if you look at here, when a close game all this entire time for this weekend, there's gonna be a close game. I'm picking the team with I think the better defense. So that said, we're going with Oregon State, and I think they win. I don't know, probably like 32-24, that range.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be just Beavs that are going to power past them. I think Arizona State's going to look respectable, though. I don't think it's going to be like in doubt, but I think it's going to be respectable. But Beavs still pull the win.
I agree with that.
All right, another exciting one, guys. It's the big game and the 40th anniversary of the play of the band is on the field when the Stanford band came on the field and Cal pulled one of the most miraculous upsets in history. If you guys have not seen the ESPN E60 movie, The Band is on the Field, you absolutely should. Go on ESPN, it's streaming, you can pull it off, you can see it live, set your DVR, whatever you have to do, it's fantastic. So we've got Cal, we've got Stanford at Memorial Stadium, no longer FTX Field at Memorial Stadium, now that FTX went belly up. And a special shout out to one of our guests here in our little picture. If you know, you know. And we're glad you're watching us. And hint, it's not the Stanford tree in exile. All right, Chris, you're up.
All right. Yeah, so Cal's like not good, right? We know that the offensive line has issues. They just fired their offensive coordinator, Bill Musgrave, and their O-line coach, Angus McClure, who was actually like a D-line guy at UCLA. They play Stanford and UCLA next, so that seems like a really good time to me to fire some offensive coaches and look like improved, and I put that in air quotes, against some defenses that aren't as good in Stanford and UCLA, and maybe appease some of your fan base or some voices that are getting loud that might not want you coaching anymore. I'm just throwing that out there. They both have a common opponent in Notre Dame, right? Which Stanford beat and Cal lost to. And again, I said Cal's not that good, but you know what's worse than Cal? Stanford. And Cal wins 24-17, takes it down in Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, this is the 40th anniversary, like you mentioned, Tony, of the play, and Cal doesn't have much to play for this season, but they do have Stanford at home, and Stanford's a bad team, and Cal is going to find a way to engineer another win against Stanford, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. And I got to ask you, Tony, number 15, is he somebody that we know or we don't know? Who is that number 15 there on the?
He's a legend. He's a legend. A legend who led Cal famously to a comeback win over Stanford.
When they had Jim Plunkett.
Led Cal to beating Jim Plunkett. So if you know, you know.
Can you share it with our viewers?
I don't know. It might be classified.
I don't know.
If you know, you know, and he might be watching. And if he is, we salute you for sticking it to Stanford.
He might be watching, and I'll say hi during Thanksgiving for you.
Yeah, tell him hello at Thanksgiving for us.
Or Christmas. I'll be gone during Thanksgiving, but yeah, Christmas I'll say hi.
Cal wins this one.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be going with my theme on defense. Cal just has shown up. Funny enough, I was surprised when I looked at this stat, but Cal is completing their pass plays are at 61%. Stanford's a woeful 55% passing. I just really think that defense will win the day, even though There's a lot of uncertainty with Cal losing their OC. Cal wins this one. They don't cover, but I'm thinking maybe they win 24-20.
Yeah, so you guys know my view, and that is, first of all, Stanford, you don't get to get picked until you free the tree. And I don't think Stanford's won. Well, I guess they beat Notre Dame, but other than that sad Notre Dame team, Stanford has not won since they imprisoned the tree. And we currently have a Vichy tree, guys. There is a collaborator tree that is acting as tree while the real tree is suspended. So Stanford, until you free the tree, you don't get the pick. Also, Cal's bad, but you're worse. So I think Berkeley rolls. Go Cal.
Scab tree. That's horrible.
It's a Vichy tree.
Vichy, yeah, Vichy French.
Vichy tree. Although the Vichy tree is friends with the real tree, so like the real tree is kind of more slack than the rest of us. So yeah, no Vichy tree. All right, guys, moving on. There is a big game. Utah and Oregon. Guys, this one needs no further introduction. It's one of the biggest games of the season. Who do we think pulls it off?
The Ducks did a really good job of bouncing back after they got beat by Georgia. I don't think that they played their A game, and they're gonna have to bounce back again. After that gut-wrenching loss to their rival in Washington. And I'm going to pick the Ducks, but I want it to be clear that it's not a knock on Utah at all. And I think like when we have our power rankings, I think there's a reasonable argument that you can put most of the top 5 in like any order you want and support it with some kind of like coherent argument. But I'm still of the position that despite their loss last week, I do think that Oregon is the best team. And I'm taking the Ducks to not lose 2 in a row in a place where before last week they hadn't lost in 3 years or something.
This is going to be another challenge for Dan Lanning and his coaching staff. That loss to Washington hurt. And some will question Dan Lanning's play calling late in the game, going for it on 4th and short, which ultimately led to a turnover and downs, and Washington kicking a go-ahead, which happened to be the game-winning field goal. Kyle Whittingham is a master. Great coach. They're a tough, defensive-minded team. We know that. But they don't play well away from Rice Eccles. But they do tend to have a balanced offense. The running game hasn't been as proficient as it has been in the past. But Utah knows what's in front of them right now, and they've got a second chance. And they have confidence playing Oregon. And, obviously this is a different Oregon team, different coaching staff, different quarterback. Bo Nix, we don't know how healthy he is. That's going to be a question mark. We know that last Hail Mary, he really couldn't step into it. Hopefully he's healthy because he's a great quarterback. And but again, you got Cam Rising, and you've got a porous Oregon secondary. It was on full display against Penix. He had his way. Penix was all in that gap, all over those gaps. And I see that happening again. And I see Utah winning by 3 points. I got the Utes.
I'm with you, Rick. Again, sticking with my theme for this week, because there are a lot of games go either way. Utah's defense is, well, I think tight end Delay had it. That when there's kind of shootout games, it's going to come down to the defense. You have Oregon has one of the worst third down conversion defense. Their defense, they're giving up almost 50% of their third downs, and on top of that, the completion percentage for opposing teams is 67% against the Ducks. We watched that Duck secondary just get carved up last week. Granted, I don't really think that Rising has the arm of Penix, but they don't need to throw all over the place. They'll throw when they need to. They're going to run the ball, and I think they're going to run it well against Oregon. This game, again, is going to be a battle of the defenses who can make the stops. And I do think it's going to be Utah in a close one by 3. Oh, but by the way, a big part of that also is I'm thinking Bo Nix, if he does play, is hurt, and Forsyth, their center. I mean, you guys, if he's out or if he's even limited or whatever, centers are amazing part of an offense, calling out the line play and stuff. So losing your center and having a hobbled Bo Nix, this Oregon team is looking at a disaster if Bo Nix is hurt and can't play.
Yeah, no, if Bo's hurt, it hurts.
Yeah, I don't even out. I mean, he's not even 100% because what he does with his feet is a big part of his game.
Is a huge piece. Zach T, thank you for your donation. That we really appreciate it. It helps the channel so much. Thank you for that. And in your honor, I'll tell you, I'm going to you. I think that it's going to stun Oregon to lose second in a row at Autzen, but Utah's a good team. And Bo Nix, he looked hurt. That the degree of hurt that he looked doesn't heal in a week. And I mean, just like we saw with Eric Gentry at USC, if he's out, like, or even just not 100%, I think Utah rolls. We saw Utah's backup quarterbacks are better than Oregon's. So Oregon's so good. Fully healthy Bo Nix, I would probably lean towards Oregon, but I'm going with the Utes. Also, Mike Leach points out a Ute is much more dangerous than a Duck. So,
and one more thing, that backup quarterback for Utah, that guy's got like track speed. That guy is fast.
Isn't he also like a pig farmer? But he's really good. Like, anyway.
I don't know that far on the bio.
I mean, I think he actually is. Something like that.
He is a pig farmer.
Hey, just really quick, a thing for Utah fans. We don't want to dwell on this. We did this last week. Just so you guys know, you guys did not get hosed by the networks. ESPN tried to have this game earlier in the day and could not. The reason for that is that the Fox game was slated to be Fox saved the primetime game, and ESPN's not allowed to conflict with Fox. They asked for a waiver. Fox said no, which is fair. They also couldn't have it earlier in the day because the Ohio State game is at 3:30, and in the Big Ten, they can't move November games tonight without permission, so the Big Ten said no. So ESPN was not screwing you guys over. ESPN tried to get this game to an earlier time slot and could not. Now, guys, tomorrow is a big day. Tomorrow, the University of California Regents, who've been meeting for the past 2 days at UC Mission Bay, or whatever it is, hospital complex, have been saying are going to actually decide for finally whether UCLA is officially going to the Big Ten or not. So we want to take a couple of minutes and just walk you guys through this real quick because it's such a big deal. So if you guys know, John Canzano and John Wilner are both saying 90% that UCLA goes. We're going to have a special show with Mark about this on Friday. So we think it's projecting to be one happy Big Ten family crossing the nation from the Statue of Liberty to the Santa Monica Pier. Just to give you guys some quick pieces from this, you can again, we're going to have a special show with this on Mark. But COVID has plunged UCLA into some debt. It's a little bit of debatable debt. It's some sketchy accounting, but it's still, UCLA's had big losses. But what I thought was really interesting, when you dig into the losses that the Regents published, COVID, of course, devastated them in a lot of ways, but UCLA was losing a lot of money before COVID. And why were they losing money? Well, there's a lot of big debates, but I think it's because their football team and their basketball team stank. And I think that's a big part of the reason. We'll talk about this
again. Yeah, the first 4 or 5 years under Chip Kelly were like literally the worst record, or sorry, first 3 years or so were like the worst. We're the worst record of UCLA football in its like program history.
And how is your basketball team?
Alfred is I'm glad he's gone. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, the coach is gone. So you take a look. By the way, Bart, it's not really debt; they owe it to themselves. The school has borrowed. The school has sort of loaned the money. Now, remember, guys, too, one of the biggest expenses that athletic departments pay is scholarships. Who do they pay the scholarships to? Themselves. What does it really cost to put a kid in a class? $0. So a lot of this is play money. A lot of it is taking money out of one pocket of the school, putting it into another pocket of the school, and then pretending you're broke. Sort of like the way UCLA does is it's like if your wife just decided, she was going to loan you money and you were like, well, it's all our money. And she was like, well, you owe it to me with interest. Then you make more money. And she says, actually, I'm just going to keep that and call that parking revenue in a different pile. So the UCLA accounting is sketchy. It's not sketchy illegal, just really sketchy if you're not an accounting major. We won't.
You mean it's not normal to rent your own basketball stadium from your school?
No, exactly. UCLA, they rent their own facilities from the school. They pay themselves licensing for every jersey they make. It's again, and there's reasons for it in accounting, guys. It's called activity-based costing. I won't bore you with MBA classes. There's reasons for it. The thing is you do that accounting for a reason, but then you don't complain about it. And the thing that UCLA has done is they're doing it and complaining about it. I mean, you talk about capital projects, budgeting, and all that. There's reasons you might rent your own facilities, but you don't do that and then pretend you don't have the money. And that's what they're doing. So let's take a look really quick at the financial impacts of this, because this is going to be a big issue when they come to it. UCLA is going to spend $10 million more to go to the Big Ten. They're going to have about 5.8 up to, they say 4.7 to 5.8. So let's just call it the top. 5.8 million more in travel. They're also doing a lot of things for the, thanks, tight end delay. They're doing a lot of things for the athletes. They are big ones. Nutritional support. UCLA wants to boost up the meals they provide to their students. It's going to cost $3 million. They're increasing their academic support, hiring more people to help the athletes, both at home and on the road. And then they're adding some people to help with mental health services. So, it's 5.8 million more in travel. The rest of it is better services for the athletes. And that's going to add about 10 million to their cost. Now, just to be clear, UCLA has blamed most of the losses of the conference on USC. So Cal's projected to lose $12 million as a result of the Big Ten departure. 9 million of that is credited to USC by the UC regents, by their math. Only 3 million to UCLA. So what does that mean? Well, that difference comes because they think that they would have about 45 million in their media revenue if USC and UCLA were staying. How that breaks down, guys, is a long chart. I won't go all through it with you. But basically, what this is showing is that if they were to stay in the Pac-12, they under the current, again, their accounting is sketchy and all that, but they would still be losing money under their accounting circumstances. Again, they're not really losing money, but under their accounting, they would still be losing money, and they're holding our athletic department accountable to that. So they are not going to stay, and the regions know this. I will tell you, based on my calculations, UCLA going to the Big Ten, even when you count the extra money they're spending and you count the money that is being lost by Cal, and that includes the USC money that's being lost by Cal, I think the UC regions the University of California as a whole is still going to come out about $16 million on the whole, better. And if you count the impact that I think will come from adding San Diego State to the Pac-12, the state of California and its people are going to come out about $40 million ahead. Just a couple other quick things from this note. It was really interesting. First of all, very few UCLA athletes think the Big Ten move is a bad idea. Only 7% of the UCLA athletes they surveyed thought going to the Big Ten was a bad idea. 55% said it was a good idea, no problem, and some more want more information. The other interesting thing, by the way, of that, the athletes who are traveling the most on the sports that travel the most want to go to the Big Ten the most, which is interesting because they're high-profile sports. They want to compete in the Big Ten. Very interesting here. They asked the UCLA athletes, who is it? Is it important to be in the same conference with USC? It's important to be in the same conference with Cal. 93% of UCLA athletes said it is important or very important to be in the same conference as USC. Only 24% of UCLA athletes said it is important or very important to be in the conference with Cal Berkeley. Guys, real quick, what do we think of this?
Obviously, George Kliavkoff did not speak to the UCLA athletes. There were 600 of them. He had mentioned that nobody he spoke to thought it was a good idea that UCLA was going to the Big Ten. Great stuff, Tony.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's clear the UCLA athletes want to be in the Big Ten. That's all I'm going to say. With all that money, that's what it is. Sorry, Pac-12.
Oh, they do. And why do they want to be in the Big Ten? Well, again, you guys could pull the report up. But the big things that they said why they want to go to the Big Ten, increased national exposure, increased resources, so that extra money, increased TV opportunities, greater NIL opportunities, and better services for the athletes. The big thing, we don't have a lot of slides on it, but the UCLA athletes complained about their nutrition and stuff. They know that the Big Ten is giving them the money for that. You guys saw they've had to cut costs because of their, again, I call them fake losses. You can argue whether they're fake or not. They have the money if they want it, but they don't have it in their own minds. so they're not spending it. So this is going to give the UCLA athletes what they want.
The fake losses are probably a lot like the 9 million versus 3 million or whatnot, versus like in the same way that like it looks a lot better when you're arguing to the UC regents of why you should be let go to say, oh, I blame this other guy. We're really only responsible for 3 million of this.
Exactly. And the other reason that guys that the schools like to show the athletic departments in the red is it's a whole lot easier to fundraise for the athletic department than for like the geology department. So remember, if the kid's a geology major, the athletic department's paying the geology department, when in reality they could just write that off probably. By the way, we're gonna get one dig on UCLA because it is rivalry week. Do you know what the factor is that was least important to the UCLA athletes?
Winning?
No, increased attendance.
Sorry.
Increased attendance was not important to them. I will say they also compete at the highest level was not important to them. I think that's deceptive because I think it's because UCLA is already basically at the highest level. Now, travel concerns are greatly overblown by uneducated fans. Just a second on this. Yeah, they're not like flying and matching Concords around the country. But one of the really interesting things, guys, most UCLA sports will have little or no impact going to the Big Ten. So 12 of the sports either aren't going to be in the Big Ten because the Big Ten doesn't offer them, or the only thing they're going to do in the Big Ten, like cross country, is they're going to go to the Big Ten championship instead of the Pac-12 championship. So instead of flying to UW for the cross country meet, they're going to fly to Wisconsin or wherever it is. No change. 3 sports, football, men's, women's tennis, are impacted, but they actually travel very little. When we looked at the USC schedule, for example, the only difference in USC's tennis schedule is instead of flying like one weekend to Arizona, they'll fly one weekend to somewhere in the Midwest. That's the only difference. And they'll go to the Big Ten championship instead of the Pac-12 championship. No change. Now, a couple of sports, football, baseball, not football. Football is not very little change because of how they travel. Basketball, softball, volleyball, they're going to get hit hard. So anyway, we don't want to dwell on this too much. One thing that is kind of funny, they have been very clear on this. USC and UCLA are going to share charter jets for some of their non-revenue sports. So like, volleyball and tennis and track, USC and UCLA may all fly together and play Michigan and Michigan State, in kind of a fun big weekend. Now, that will majority change football. It will backfire. No, nothing changes in football travel. You guys in chat. Nothing changes in football travel other than instead of flying 2 hours to Washington, you fly 3 hours to Chicago. Now, some people freak out about this, but guess what? USC and UCLA already travel together a little bit. For example, when they go to Oregon, a lot of them all stay together in the same hotel in Eugene because it's like right between Corvallis and U of O. So like they all travel together. By the way, most of these kids for most of these sports that you saw, when you saw that whole list of sports, yeah, the swimmers, the volleyball players, the water polo players, the rowers, yeah, they're all from like the same high schools. They all play on the same travel teams. They're friends. They've known each other since they were kids. So it's actually not a big deal. It's actually going to be kind of fun. The Big Ten team's looking forward to it too. So anyway, that's some stuff on UCLA. Tomorrow we're going to know for sure with the Regents. Sorry guys, thanks for surviving that. But we thought you guys would find it interesting. We appreciate the comments from you guys. I guess you did. Guys, this is the game. USC, UCLA. Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson are going to be there. It's in the Rose Bowl. They're calling it a sellout, although they're still leaving 20,000 seats tarped. What do we think, guys? Trojans and the Bruins, game of the year.
So, for all of the talking and complaining that USC fans do about how the Pac-12 is always out to get them, for some scheduling stuff with the COVID year, not counting that, even though this is the 3rd year instead of the standard 2 where SC avoids playing Oregon and Washington, right? And I point that out because what it means is that the only team in the top 5 of the standings in the conference that USC has played so far this year is Utah, who they lost against. And USC has a 7-1 conference record, but those 7 wins come against teams 6 through 12 in the Pac-12 standings, who are combined 14 and 36 in conference. So now Big Bad SC, all they have to do is beat little old UCLA, who couldn't beat Arizona last week, to clinch a spot in the conference championship. They won't have to play Oregon or Washington after they're done with their conference schedule after this week. so they control their own destiny. The USC pass rush actually does scare me a little bit more now, especially after what happened last week against Arizona for DTR. Arizona was able to get some pressure on DTR and make him be not as good as he had been earlier in the year with a little bit more time. But all that being said, UCLA is a leader nationally in yards per carry. And even though Hilton is gone, you're going to have some SC fans are going to have some PTSD flashbacks to last year, where UCLA had about 260 yards rushing as we shove it down their throat again and run it down their throats, and UCLA wins going away. And if we don't win, I won't be here next week to hear about it because I will be out of the country and I don't have to worry about it. So go Bruins. We're going to kick some Trojan ass.
Chris, I don't want to break it to you, but they do have the internet in other countries. Just put that out there.
No, not where I am. Regardless, okay. I will not be here. Win or lose, I will not be here. Ben doesn't have to make the same milk carton joke after each one of our losses. Win or lose, I will not be here. You don't have to go looking for me.
I like it.
Rick, I think you're on mute.
Rick, you're on mute.
Sorry, I love Chris. He's awesome.
Yeah, man.
But what he failed to tell you was the week after Lincoln Riley got hired, he booked a trip in another country this particular weekend. So sorry about that, Chris. I just thought I'd tell him what you told me.
All right.
Let me tell you about some coincidences here. Stuff the viewers in the chat you may not know. Number one, USC used to have this defensive coordinator by the name of Clancy Pendergast. And Clancy was a pretty good defensive coordinator, but he could not stop mobile quarterbacks. And guess who's been working with Chip Kelly on the defense? None other than Clancy Pendergast. And you saw what that defense did to Jaden DeLora. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't contain him. I had flashbacks watching that game, and that's why one of the reasons why I took Arizona. And people thought I was crazy. That's one coincidence. Also, Lincoln Riley, when he was at Oklahoma starting in 2017, there's this thing about winning in November. And Oregon fans, take note. Because if you want to be respected on a national level, you got to win in November. And until that happens, hey, you're just Oregon. Okay? Pete Carroll from 2001 to 2008 was 27-0 in November. There's a reason why 2 national championships were won, 6-1 in major bowl records, because you win in November. Lincoln Riley from 2017 to 2020 was 14-0 in November. His final year at Oklahoma, he was 1-2 in November. And then like 48 hours of losing Bedlam, he became USC's coach. And a week later, Chris booked his trip to somewhere far off in Europe because he knows, all right? Lincoln Riley is a winner in November. And 2 of those wins while he was at OU was against Chip Kelly back in 2018 and 2019. Alex Grinch was his DC in 2019. Grinch was at Ohio State in 2018. And who was Chip Kelly's quarterback then? None other than DTR. Yes, DTR has been playing that long, okay? And so Lincoln Riley has the book on Chip Kelly. He has a book on DTR. And USC is going to roll, baby, 49-31.
Yeah, I think we all know where this panel is going to go with these picks, but there's been great reasoning on both sides so far, so I want to throw that out the window. But Rick and I talked about this earlier with the whole Pendergast thing. That UCLA brain trust decided to throw out a tweet about the fact that Joshua Kelly lit up USC's defense, ran for like 289 yards. Guess who the defensive coordinator was when Joshua Kelly did that, folks? That's right. Clancy Pendergast, the guy that's calling the defense for those guys this week. One more thing. I think that all the respect in the world for Chip Kelly calling offensive plays. It makes me sick to say that, but I just said it. I got out of the way. Guy does call great game, but so does Lincoln Riley. So we're going to call that a wash. One thing in this game is to come down to is red zone scoring, because we know that teams are going to be moving down the field, getting lots of yards. That's almost a given. But the difference in this game is that UCLA is 127th in the country in red zone defense. Defense. The teams score 94.4% of the time once they get into the red zone. Now, flip that over to USC, who's at 77%. On top of that, that 77% is with Gentry out, with a banged up Lee, with other players out. They're getting healthy. And I'll tell you what, Chris, if Gentry shows up and he's doing warmups and he's on that field when USC takes the field, I'm feeling really good about this win, because when Gentry was on team, USC was elite in the red zone. They were at 60% in the red zone. Because the way it's explained by Ryan Abraham is that red zone, once you get that red zone, the field shrinks. We know that. But when you've got a 6'6" guy with a 7-foot wingspan, it shrinks even further.Ose passing lanes get even tighter. And I'm going to look for bad DTR, not 2022 DTR, if he's in the game. I think that USC is going to be a tight one, guys. I think someone in the chat says it's going to be a classic. I'm looking at a 3-point game. It's going to come down to the wire. I think USC's going to score last, and they're going to win by 3.
I'm going to buck the trend. USC by 14.
Ooh.
That defense looked like Swiss cheese the last few weeks, and USC's defense looked like smaller whole Swiss cheese. With Gentry back in there, I think it changes. With that, the defense has come together. I think they've been ready for this. I think they kept guys out. They waited, and I think they're ready for this game. Lincoln Riley will step up and win this game, and I think we win it by 2 touchdowns. Fight on, Trojans.
Yeah. And one thing, Chris, that I'm going to tell you is last year, Brandon Peely was out, and our linebackers were small and slow. Shane Lee is not the fastest guys, but he's not small, and he can shed blocks, and he can come downhill. So I know, again, I have all the respect in the world for your offense, but this will be one of the better pass rushers, like you said. You got Tui Pelotu. Tuli, he's leading the country in sacks, averaging more than a sack a game. And Figueroa's no slouch himself, and a host of characters. I do think that, just like Bo Nix, I think that you put enough pressure on certain quarterbacks, they start to throw interceptions. And I'm hoping, because it's going to be close. I don't think we're going to be able to stop you guys, Chris. I'll tell you that right now. I think you're moving all the way up and down the field all day on us, but I think that the red zone defense will be the difference, and I think there might be a turnover or two.
We'll see. It's going to be interesting, guys. Now, we're adding another one, a bonus game, because we're probably going to officially see UCLA leaving the conference tomorrow. So what about San Diego State, New Mexico? Let's just hit this one real quick in honor of the fact that San Diego State may be joining us.
Can I go on record and say this is not in the Pick'em contest then? No one did any research for this one, and who knows?
I don't need research. I don't need research to know.
So I'm voting that this one is out of the Pick'em, because
overruled.
No,
Chris, go for it.
I'm abstaining.
Let's go for it.
I don't need research to know that I'm taking the new member of the Pac-12, and I'm going with the San Diego State clapping Brady hoax.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a given. I mean, the next big game that New Mexico wins will be its first. So I'm taking San Diego State.
That's a pretty safe bet. Tim, what's your bet?
I'm still abstaining with the fine. San Diego State, because they're going to run the ball over them.
Yeah, San Diego State rolls. Go Aztecs. Guys, one little thing, by the way, and I thought this was not subtle. This is one thing I forgot to put in the slide. The Pac-12 recently announced its soccer players of the year. San Diego State plays in the Pac-12 for soccer. I thought this was very not subtle. Did they show the MVP? No. Did they show the senior of the year? No. You know who they chose to feature in all of their big releases? Giant picture of him. The freshman of the year, who happens to play for San Diego State, with the hashtags Go Aztecs, Back the Pack. So I thought it was not at all subtle. And we thought we were going to see San Diego for a while. I think we're definitely going to see them. So moving on slightly, how have we been doing in our predictions, guys? Let's take a look. Well, we have a tie for third place, Rick and I, and a tie for first place, Chris and Tim. We got some differing picks this week, so we'll see how it goes for next week. Good job to everybody. We're staying pretty tight. And let's take a look at our Pac-12 power rankings, and then we're gonna we want you guys to call in. So as we do these, we'll put the link in there, and then we'd love to have you guys call in. Let's take a look at how we're looking at the power rankings. So once again, guys, it was unanimous. Colorado remains at the bottom, the worst team in the conference. Then the San Francisco teams came up. Now, Chris, we understand why you do like to eat at Christmas. So Cal could not be number 10 or number 9. Rick, you gave more love to Stanford than anybody. Why was that?
It's that victory against Notre Dame. So
good pick.
And they also beat ASU in a close game.
They did. And speaking of ASU, the Arizonas, we have filled in Arizona, and then we have universally put Arizona across the board at number 8. So then, guys, we were also kind of unanimous in our Pacific Northwest picks with the Beavs and Wazoo. But then you'll notice, guys, we grouped these. We had to move the line down because the Dogs are back. And we had a kind of a mixed take on the Dogs coming from last week. Tim, you put them at number 3. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts are that offense. That offense is amazing. And on their offensive line, I think their offensive line is completely underrated. I just, given the fact that they just beat Oregon, in Autzen, it was really hard for me to put Oregon above. Oh, spoiler, Oregon above them.
All right. Real quick, I'm putting in the link in the chat. There we go. Some of you already have it, just so everybody's got it. Next up to bat, I thought it was very interesting. The Ducks. After going down to the Dogs, also kind of all over the place. Chris, you kept Oregon number 1. What were your thoughts on that over the Bruins?
Yep. One conference loss, same as SC, but played a harder schedule. And I still think, even though they lost to Washington, that if they play that game again, I don't know if it comes out the same way. The injury, the point about the injuries to their O-line and to Bo, they could rapidly drop, right? If those things, if they aren't able to. But and again, I knew it was so funny when I was submitting this to you on Sunday or Monday. I was like, no matter what I do, I feel like people are going to be upset. I think you can put there's arguments that I can pretend to I can switch my top 5 and put it in any order theoretically, and make not within I can't put UCLA at the top, right? But there's a lot of ways you can rank 1 through 5 and make a very coherent logical argument as to why you put it that way. And I think I think they all can beat each other, as we've seen. I mean, that's how it's been.
For sure.
All right, next up, Utah. So, Rick, you have the Utes still number 1. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they beat USC. They did lose to UCLA, but I just see them as being the best team in the conference. And Kyle Whittingham and Cam Rising. So, and they're going to prove it this weekend when they go down to Autzen.
All right. And then that leaves the Trojans and the Bruins. And I think it's, don't think anybody will have trouble figuring out who's got who where. All right.
Yeah. For me with so I'll juxtapose Rick and Mize for 1 and 2. I'll counter that with Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, and the fact that I think that Utah is a more balanced team, definitely, than USC, without a doubt. They've got a very good offense and a very good defense. I just think USC's offense is really going to light up. And then on a neutral field, we lost under some, under emotional circumstances in Salt Lake City. And I called at the very beginning of the year. I said we would go up to Salt Lake City. This is before the season started, and we would lose in Salt Lake City. And if we found a way to get to the championship game, we would beat them in Las Vegas on a neutral field. And I still stand by that as well.
I have Oregon at 3, even though they just lost to Washington at home. Oregon beat UCLA, and they've been, their scoring margin on their victories has been significant. They have one conference loss, and also, UCLA just lost to Arizona, even though UCLA beat Washington early in the year. So 3, 4, and 5, they're all very close. That's the way I looked at those teams.
And one more thing about USC UO, since they didn't play each other. USC has the number 2 third down offense in the country. Oregon has the 3rd worst third down defense in the country. And I think that's gonna be something in this factoring in.
It's gonna be wild. All right, guys. Well, this is where we want to hear from you guys. So we put the link in the chat, and we'll put it in again in just a minute. You can also, it's in the description as well. But first and foremost, we got friend of the show, Larry Pilgrim, here to chat about the Utes. And we're going to add Will ND in as well, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about Notre Dame in a minute. But Larry, let's start with your big game. What do you think going into the Utes versus Ducks?
Well, I watched, and Rick saw the same thing I did. If you watch Bo Nix go back in, he couldn't escape the pocket. They're missing 2 linemen. He couldn't throw. He couldn't escape the pocket. Even if he plays, Utah's bringing the house. I think Oregon took too many hits against Washington. And so I think the benefit is going to go to Utah, just based on injuries that Oregon just sustained. Even if Bo's in there, Bo at 80% is he's not going to be able to get past that defense. You can't throw on an injured leg, and you can't run on one. And being down 2 of your 5 starting linemen is going to be an issue. Yeah. So that Washington game hurt them, I think, in more ways than. In fact, I don't even know if they're going to win at Oregon State with the injuries they sustained, just to be honest.
That's a very good point, Larry. And sorry for stepping in. And I referenced the game that USC played up at Rice-Eccles. That was a physical game, and we sustained injuries in that game. Eric Gentry and Mario Williams have yet to play. Raylan Goforth just came back last week, and Addison came back last week as well. And so USC was not the same team after playing Utah. We had a bye week, but fortunately, we struggled, as many saw, but we came away with 3 W's. That was the significant part. So unfortunately, Oregon is not going to have a bye week coming off of that Washington loss. They've got to go right back at it against a very motivated and confident Utah team that's got everything in front of them. Not that Oregon doesn't. They've got everything in front of them too. It's going to be a hell of a game. But
right,
we're going to get to see what's going to happen there. And those injuries, and I don't know how significant they are, but with the line and with Bo Nix, we're gonna see what's going to happen in that game.
Yeah, and that's what
a friend of a guy that I actually met. He doesn't really ever participate in the chat. But Adam S., he's a Duck fan, and he DM'd me on Twitter. It was a video of Chris Hudson, and I think a lot of people that are Duck fans in the crowd know what I'm about to say. And during an interview, he basically said that Bo Nix is out. It just slipped out. And
yeah, I've got a stat. I don't know if you guys watched Joe Klatt earlier. This is a crazy stat. Teams that were double digits at home that lost the following week that played a top 25 team in the last 30 years is 0-9. So the trend is over the last 30 years.
I don't like that one.
Yeah, it's literally over the last 30 years, any team that was a double-digit favorite at home lost and faced a top 25 team the next week is 0-9, which if that stat remains, Utah and UCL or and USC.
Larry, I've always loved you, and I just love you more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I got a stat for it. You got to love Clapp. Clapp brought that out. So anyway, I was kind of shocked by that, and I was like, kind of makes sense because, I mean, it's very deflating to lose, and have your hopes kind of smacked around like that. And Utah had the same situation with injuries. Cam we took some injuries against USC as well, and we managed to get some wins to go up on the Palouse on a Thursday night with your third string offense and win. That was pretty good. So anyway, that's what I'm feeling. Is Addison and Mario Williams coming back? Do you guys know?
Addison was back last game, but he wasn't 100%. Mario Williams is still, I guess, day to day. He said that both, he being Riley said that both Gentry and Mario Williams are practicing and progressing. They're participating in practice, is where exact words were. What that means, who knows? He's been very.
That means they're going to be in.
No, because he said that right for many weeks prior to this. He said, the day to day, it looks good. They're getting better, blah. And then we never saw people for weeks. So no, he's been pretty much saying the same thing. So we don't know. We don't know.
He's been resting them. I mean, why would you bring those guys in against Colorado? You know what I mean? That's just stupid.
Yeah.
That's just dumb. So, is Ben in the back room?
No, Ben's not here.
Oh, okay.
No.
You're welcome to call in now. You want everybody to call in?
Paging Ben.
Or Mikey G too. I mean, Mikey G seems like he's a pretty cool dude. He's
not a homer. Mikey G's awesome. Mikey G should call in. Yeah, Mikey G's cool. I got respect for pretty much everybody on here. So, no bad words. If Oregon was at full strength, I think this would be a very difficult game for Utah. But given injuries, I think they're just going to luck out that way. So,
Larry,
that's my opinion.
What's Utah's injury situation?
We were down to our third string center too, but he's actually a bigger boy. Tavion Thomas is, I don't know if you guys saw, he's back. Injury wise, Dalton's good to go. They brought him in just to keep him kind of warmed up against Stanford, but he's good to go. Injury wise, we lost Van Fillinger a couple of weeks ago, but we're all right. So Cam's been a little off though, so he's kind of injured. He's not hobbling. He did make some plays with his legs, so I think they were precautionary, told him don't take any chances. And so I think Utah's pretty healthy, honestly, for this game.
There's a comment by Bart. Thanks for the comment. Mario Williams started the Colorado game. That was Jordan Addison. There's a number 4 on defense for USC. That's Max Williams, but Mario Williams didn't play. He was out in warmups, and then after warmups, they went in the locker room, and he came back out in street clothes and was on the sideline. So he did not play and hasn't played since the Utah game.
Yeah, and I think DTR shooting his mouth off was probably not smart.
Oh, I love the reaction from the SC guys. They was like, "Oh, really? You said that? Oh, didn't know that," and just moved on. They didn't even take the bait. They went, "Oh, he said that?" Little laugh. "Oh, okay, I didn't know that." And then
no, they got to go to their Xerox and stick it on the board in the locker room. That's how they do that. So anyway, but that's my take on the Utes. So yeah, I think injuries to Oregon is it just came at the wrong time against the wrong team coming up. So that's my take.
Well, good luck to your Utes.
Thanks. Good luck to your Trojans. And
yeah, no, good luck, Larry.
I know, Chris. Sorry, bud.
What?
But here's the thing. If it's Utah and USC, this is granted USC beats Notre Dame, Utah is going to the Rose Bowl. Because if USC, and I talked about it, if USC is 11-1 or in the championship game, they're going to go to the CFP. So that would put Utah in the Rose Bowl.
Are you conceding the championship game against?
No, it doesn't matter. The best Utah can do is the Rose Bowl, no matter what.
You just go either way.
Okay.
So,
and Larry, can you help set up? I see somebody in the chat made one of the dumber comments I've seen of the night. Maybe the Pac throws it to get for USC to get the conference in the playoffs.
That sounds like an SEC thing. Like,
yeah, that's we don't do that type of nonsense out west. In fact,
no, Utah's not going to concede
kind of enjoy
the
each
game.
other's losses, to be honest.
That's why Arizona beat UCLA, right? When they could have set up for the biggest.
And by the way, we're just to the guy who said that we're just giving you a hard time. We love you.
I'm so sorry, Chris. I don't know why the top 4 teams have done nothing but beat the other 8, and then
we ruined it.
What the crap was that?
That's the Pac-12 after dark.
They should stick a Cougar. They need to stick a Cougar sticker on the side of their helmet next week because they couged it.
They couged it.
We spotted them 14 and then decided we didn't. Yeah, we decided we didn't want to play offense against a team that everybody's outscored twice as many points. I'm not surprised that Arizona scored on us, but I am surprised that the fact that we only had 28.
We're all surprised that they won.
No, the fact that we only had 28 points against a team that's given up 45 plus to anyone with a pulse. Cal had 49 or something against Arizona. We were still running the ball for 7.5 yards a carry. We just we screwed that game up about as bad as you can mess something up.
So Chris, that USC 8-point narrow victory against the Cats in Tucson is looking pretty good.
Sure. Or you could say that it also doesn't look good. Just because we played bad. Yeah, sure. It still doesn't have to look good.
I'll take that over a 6-point loss.
Michigan.
I feel bad. Jason. I feel bad because some of these guys are great, and you hate to see their team lose. I mean, I don't want to see your team lose, Chris, but it's just is what it is.
It helps the youths get back in the picture, though, right? And I don't want to harp on the tiebreaker stuff too much. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens this week, and then I'll bring it up. There's some really weird stuff in the way that tiebreakers work, where it doesn't make any sense to me. But I'll complain about that later if it's actually.
We better
relevant.
not have. Yeah, we better not have 5, 7, and 2s. No.
But that would be the most Pac-12 thing ever, and it would work perfectly along with the Ivy League, who may also have a 4-way unbreakable tie.
Well, I want to address Michigan man Jason. I've been trying to jump on this for a while now. Michigan man, obviously you're not paying attention. About a week and a half ago, I went full circle on that. The more I saw the way USC was playing with physicality, I really came full circle. About a week and a half ago on the USC post-game show, talk about the fact that I actually do want the playoffs now. So, and matter of fact, I was talking to Tony just today when I was in line at a pharmacy, and I said to Tony, and Tony's like, yeah, you know what? I want the playoffs too. And so I think we're pretty much all on board. Rick, do you want playoffs?
One game at a time, my friend. One game at a time.
Well, I'm saying would you be willing to go? Would you want to go to the playoffs?
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. UCLA's never ruined an SC season. UCLA's never ruined an SC season while they looked ahead to go into the championship before, right? That's never happened. I wasn't in school.
I don't want to.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
One game at a time.
Lightning doesn't strike twice, Chris. That was the biggest miracle I've ever seen in my life. So don't worry, that won't happen again.
I'm actually kind of surprised Chris to predict 13-9 for the game this weekend.
That defense isn't here right now.
It's rivalry week, Chris. So just here talking a little smack. It's going to be a great game. Caleb Williams and DTR and Charbonnet. Got to factor in that as well. But it's going to be a lot of fun at the Coliseum. I mean, at the Rose Bowl. And so, hey, this is great. 2 ranked teams, and may the best team win.
To the point about the playoff, though, real quick, is I think, and when we were like dreaming of this, also this was like a UCLA fan board argument of like a Rose Bowl versus like going to the playoff and maybe getting beat by like 50 against Georgia. And I think you should always want to play in the biggest game that you can play in. And if that means that the biggest game that you play in is a game that doesn't match up as well for you and you get throttled, I still think it's better to go to the playoff and lose, because you should want to be in that game rather than go to a Rose Bowl. And I love the Rose Bowl, and we haven't been in a long time, and I'm not like disparaging the Rose Bowl at all, but I think that it's, I don't want to say like a loser mentality, but I think you should always want to be in the biggest game that you can compete in. Really, like whatever that outcome ends up being, you should want to be on the biggest stage you can be on.
I agree with you, Chris. And the reason why I haven't come out and gone full 180, such as Tim and Tony, is because we're seeing it right now. It's all the posturing that comes out. It's ridiculous. We've only played 10 games. There's 2 to 3 more games that have to be played. And every conference is talking, defending their teams and pointing out these guys have a quality win. They only have one quality win. You got uneducated fans. They're quoting beating ranked teams that were like in week 2, 3, and 4 of the season. That's ridiculous. It doesn't matter what their ranking is when you play them. It is what their ranking is as of right now, week 10 of the college football playoff. That's why preseason rankings are ridiculous and don't matter. Yeah, even though, like, for instance, Tennessee beat Pitt on the road. Pitt was ranked at the time, but they're 6-4. They're not ranked right now. So that's not beating a ranked team. So it's let everything play out. And if the committee decides that USC is worthy enough to go to a playoff, well, then fine. But USC has a lot of winning to do to get to that point.
Well, and also, yeah, we need to win the next games before we worry too much about it. That's what I've said the whole time.
Yeah, obviously. But what we're talking about is we've been talking about the future. That's kind of the point of this show, is to kind of like do hypotheticals and talk on talking points. Of course, we got to win one game at a time. I'm fully on board. The likelihood, I'm going to tell you, the likelihood of us winning, UCLA and then beating Notre Dame and then beating Utah or Oregon or whoever we face is very slim. Yeah. But I had said all along the whole year that, man, I hope we don't, because that game is that might actually happen. And so in case it does happen, I've now come 180 and said to myself, you know what? Let things go where they go. I think they need to go, like Chris put it perfectly. You just got to go play on the highest stage and not worry about what's going to happen. Because does anyone talk about how Michigan got destroyed last year when they finally made it? No. Do people talk about, sorry, Will, plug yours, how Notre Dame gets Notre Damed when they get there? No one talks about that. They just talk about, USC's never made it to the playoffs, and that's like a talking point.
I do. I talk about the Notre Dame one.
You do. Sorry, we do it. We do with Will, but I mean, in general, they're going to bring it up. So, I mean, the fact is that, you go there, if you make it there, it's almost like this elite fraternity now. Because, I mean, truly, how many teams have actually made that playoff? It's been, the usual suspects rotating, bringing one guy in here and there. And it's been a huge comment. Obviously, USC's never made it to the playoffs. You know what, you guys? You're right. It'd be great if they did this year.
And speaking of those Notre Dame folks, Will, what do you think? Larry, thank you for calling in. We're glad to have you.
Thanks, you guys.
We've got Will on the line. Will, tell us what you think. We got the Notre Dame game, and then Notre Dame's coming to the Coliseum. What are your thoughts?
I'm Joe Montana here. I'm playing it with the flu, but so I'm excited about this BC game only because our boy Phil Dracovic is coming home. Like, I loved Phil. I wanted him to get some playing time. I wanted him in 2019 when we were getting blown out by Michigan. Get him in, but unfortunately BK lied to him, said he'd get an opportunity during the season, and he didn't. So he left for pastures up north to backup college, and he's been pretty injury plagued there because they, especially this year, since they have no offense, like have a statue. Like he would have been great at Notre Dame because we have an offensive line, unlike BC. But since he has no offensive line, he keeps getting injured at Chestnut Hill. So, but it'll still be nice to see him come back to South Bend because this would have been his senior day. So it's nice getting to be with his old pals. So yeah, I'm excited for the BC game, but we should win big, especially because I think we could just attack Phil or whatever quarterback they have pretty easily with our D line.
It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
All right, Will, stick around with us. You free to stick around with us?
Yeah.
Okay, we'd love to have your input. Let's welcome Anthony to the group. Anthony, welcome. How are you doing?
Good. And yourself?
Oh, doing great, thanks. Anthony, what do you think about the Pac-12 games coming up this week?
Yeah, I think if we can win the turnover battle and the penalties, SC wins big.
I like this. We need you to call it more often.
Yeah, along with the superior coaching staff.
I like the way you think. Anthony.
What do you think?
Now.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
What do you think about that, Chris?
I mean, I agree. If you win the turnover battle, you probably do win. If we throw a couple picks or something, but like again, I mean, I think it's going to come down to obviously against your team, and we can't come out and start the way we did against Arizona. But thankfully, even though we played that bad last week, doesn't mean that we have to necessarily turn around and be that bad again week 2. And again, the pass rush for SC does scare me, especially from last week. That's my big takeaway for this week compared to what happened last week. I think you can wash off a lot of things, but the way Arizona actually got after our quarterback scares me with what SC can do on the defensive line. That being said, over the course of the year, it's not a fluke to be, in the top, the top of yards per carry over the course of, an entire season. And I don't think, if you've had that much success running the ball all year, I don't think that all of a sudden goes away. And I think that if we can, I'm not saying play takeaway and keep the ball the whole time, but if we can control the game running the ball and make it so that Caleb isn't on the field the entire game, chucking it around everywhere because he's gonna get his. If we can control the game and keep the pace, I don't think that we're gonna come around chucking it around. I don't think we're going to put it 63 or whatever it was that we put up last year. But if we can control the game and not have to get in obvious passing situations where your defensive line and can pull their ears back and get after us, then I think we have just as good a chance. There's a reason it's only a 2.5 point spread, even though we lost to Arizona last week.
Hey guys, real quick, I'm getting messages from people. Just a reminder, because this is our Pac-12 show, and thanks for calling in, Anthony. Because this is our Pac-12 show, obviously that we chat about things that are in the bigger picture of college football. But if you're just muttering nonsense that doesn't have anything to do with the Pac-12, we'll just time you out because we want to keep the focus on the Pac-12 and peripherally Pac-12 stuff. So let's just keep that focus just a little bit more. The Michigan Ohio State game will be discussed by 8,000 shows throughout the week, and you should do it on all of them. But this is not one where we will not be discussing Michigan or Ohio State. So next up, we got Mikey G.
So if Michigan would have played
welcome to the show.
If Michigan would have played UCLA, then we would have talked about it, right?
Exactly.
Well, no, they not be in the discussion anymore if they had.
Yeah. If Michigan had played USC, we might be talking about them, but we're
not. They get left out of the college football playoff. They would have wished they played UCLA, but we'll leave it at that.
and thank you to the guys who sent me private messages about that. Sorry, we've been a little slack in keeping that squared away. All right, Mikey G, the Ducks and the Utes. What do you think about this game?
What's going on, fellas? Tony, you're keeping the ship straight and narrow, and I love it.
Hey, we do what we can. I mean, let's be honest. There is no lack of opportunities to discuss those other games. So there are not enough discussions, though, of Oregon and Utah, which is, I think, going to be an epic game late night.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And first, I have to say, I came on last week and I was talking a big talk about this game against UW, and I think certain Pickles is still in the chat. So I've already congratulated him on the win, but I think that I heard Tim earlier on. He threw out a stat, and I might get this wrong because I'm not a big stats guy, but I think what he said is that USC's offense on third down is like third in the country, and Oregon's third down defense is like near last. And while that may be true, Tim, what I'll remind you of is that while our pass defense is so atrocious, the best passer in the country only beat us by 3 points. We lost that game on our own volition. It wasn't a UW win as much as it was an Oregon loss. So if we're able to step up to the plate with that kind of pass defense and still keep it within 3 shy, and we could talk at great length about all of the miscues and bad decisions and all that stuff. We basically lost the game on our own decision making and just not executing. But be that as it may, we lost. I congratulate the Huskies. They came in there and they played good football, and you cannot fault them at all for that. So that being said, looking to this week, Utah is not nearly as prolific in their pass game. I have a lot of respect for Cam, and I think that he can move the ball. But I just think that you come off a loss like this, and as you guys know, it stings bad to lose against the Huskies. So these guys are going to be fired up. It's going to be in Autzen. I'll be there, and it's going to be redemption week. And I find it really hard to believe. Maybe it's better to say I find it really hard to hope that or hope against or believe against the fact that we'll lose against Utah in our house. Now, I should have thrown this out at the very beginning. We don't know what's going on with Bo. There's lots of speculation. I've seen the chat blow up, or not blow up, but people have been speculating, talking about Chris Hudson's interview and all that stuff. Look, nobody knows except Dan Lanning and that team what's going on with Bo. My assessment is that it's a bad sprain, and that if he's not in practice, they're basically letting him nurse that thing up to play on Saturday. But if Bo is not in the game, we've got real problems, and I think you guys know that.
Well, I want to jump in. My point is I don't think I think if he can play, I think he's going to play. You know what I mean? If he can get on that field, he's going to. My question is he's just such a dynamic quarterback. The reason why there's not many sacks is you guys have a good line, but the guy's mobile in the pocket. He can take off and run. He's got 15, 16 rushing touchdowns. A lot of his game is with his legs. Right. And if he's on a bad wheel, Mikey, I agree with you. I think that he's an amazing talent, and I think he's a gamer. Obviously he showed that, right? I was joking to Tony there, just shooting cocaine straight into his ankle because I don't know how he got back out there and was playing. But if he's not 100%, do you really? Well, I guess we've seen Ty Thompson. Maybe you do want him out there. No offense, So
yeah, no, it's a totally fair point, and I think that most Oregon fans think the same. No matter what bandwagon people are on, I know that a lot of people have switched over from the Ty camp into the Bo camp, and why wouldn't they? But if Bo's dinged up and he's not 100%, there's a very real chance that Ty comes in if Bo's not able to move the pocket and do things to extend plays like he's been doing all year. And so I think that Ty has been the unfortunate thing, and again, we could talk for a long time about the Ty Thompson situation, but I just think that it's been a disservice to him this year with Bo staying in the games. With the margin of victories that we've had, there have certainly been times to get him some reps at game speed that we haven't done that, and that shows. He when he does come in, It's only to hand the ball off, and it's at the very, very end of the game, and it's a bad situation. He clearly doesn't know the offense intimately like Bo does with Dilly. And so, it is what it is. And I don't know that there are many backup quarterbacks in the country that can just come in and do well, or at least expect to do well. And so I'm not saying that Oregon's doing anything a whole lot different than any other team in the whole country in terms of the way that they're grooming their other quarterbacks. It's just that Ty is clearly not ready for this caliber of a game.
Yeah, knowing the system and getting the reps in practice is not the same thing as getting those game reps at game speed in game situations. So I know what you mean. It's been a frustration of ours as Trojan fans. The fact that that they've let teams, they were up 20, a couple of times and they just couldn't pull away. And we wanted to see Miller come in and get some real game reps, because it's a totally different thing being in the Coliseum, or being at Autzen at night and playing against another team at game speed than it is playing the same guys at practice every day. So yeah, I fully agree with you.
Yeah, and we've also got big question marks with our starting center, Alex Forsyth, and one of our guards, Ryan Walk. Both, everybody talks about Oregon's offensive line. Those three dudes, Alex Forsyth and Ryan Walk, they are like, Alex is obviously the anchor. Ryan Walk is like a stud. He essentially, he was a walk-on. He's such an awesome story. If you ever want to get pumped up on a walk-on true freshman getting a spot on the starting offensive line of Oregon, check out his story because it's awesome.
Well, that's the big question about Bo Nix too. Is you've got the questionable injuries on the offensive line. Even if Bo Nix can go, like Tim had said, he's got 14 rushing touchdowns. He leads the Pac-12 quarterbacks in rushing yards with 516. How effective can he be, and for how long? I mean, let's say he plays a half. You got to have Ty Thompson come in for a half. That's problematic.
Well, let me ask you guys.
And I'm sorry, but speaking about backup quarterbacks, kudos to the Utah backup quarterback. And I apologize, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but like Larry said, he had to come in after that USC game and play.
Barnes, he's really good.
Barnes, yeah, thanks, Tony. But he had to play up at the Palouse, and Cam Rising did not play in that game, and Barnes, helped Utah win on the road. USC's got a capable quarterback in Miller Moss. Should anything happen, God forbid, to Caleb Williams, the team has the utmost confidence in Miller Moss. That guy's a quality quarterback, and he led the against, it was Colorado, but he led them on 2 touchdown drives against Colorado. And I don't think anybody on SC's team has the lack of confidence in Miller Moss should something happen to Caleb Williams. So there are some quality backups that are out there. And it's unfortunate that Ty Thompson, for whatever reason, just hasn't been developed at this point, because he was a 4 or 5 star quarterback, if I recall.
He was, yeah. He was our when he was recruited, he was the highest rated quarterback we'd ever landed at the school, and that's why so many people were foaming at the mouth to see him play last year. When we had all the inconsistency from Anthony Brown, that's when you get the boo birds coming out in Autzen saying that they wanted Ty to come out and play. And that's just kind of the way things go. You start losing ball games, everybody starts clamoring for that backup to come in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious though, what are your guys' thoughts if Bo is not able to play or is not 100%? Do you give, I guess my real question is, if Bo is somehow able to come out and he's able to perform, do we have a chance at beating Utah?
I mean, I picked you. The other, I think everybody else might have picked Utah, but I think that if Bo can't play, I think the question, what I love so much about Oregon's team is how good that offensive line is, and I think we're focusing on Bo because he's the quarterback, and everybody likes to talk about the quarterback, but it's way more important to me. Not more important, but if Bo can't go, the health of those two linemen that you're worried about not having in is even more important to me, because you're going to want to run the ball and kind of like take care of the backup, at least until he, gets his feet under him a little bit more and whatnot. Right. Like, and the reason I thought Oregon was so good the entire year is in part because of that great offensive line. And so that's like another scary part to me, just as much as Bo being there or not.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Chris. I think I'm pretty encouraged by Alex on the sideline. He still had his helmet on. He wasn't in the tent, and Dan Lanning said this week that he's pretty happy with the possibility of those guys returning this week. But of course, he's not disclosing anything as far as he might pull a Whittingham and not even say anything to the network. We don't know, So it's just I think what I would say is that there are so many weapons around Ty Thompson, and you pair that with an offensive coordinator like Kenny Dillingham. I'm not counting us out. Like I feel like Kenny, if needed, he's gonna fill Ty Thompson's tool bag as best as he possibly can, and he's got lots of tools to throw in there. And I think that our O-line, even we've got some depth at O-line too, which is why we've been so elite in terms of only 2 sacks all year. So I even if Bo is not playing a snap on Saturday, I still think we have a chance. I know that sounds pretty obscene, but I think that really it boils down to the pass defense.
Other people might not agree with you, but I agree with you on that point. And I don't think it's like all of a sudden, not to bring up terrible memories, right? But I don't think this is like an Oregon team that if they lose Bo, it's like the year they lost Dennis Dixon and went from like, literally top 3. That's the most I've ever seen losing a quarterback affect the team, right? Like he went from like being like top 3, like one of the best teams in the country, looking on Saturdays, to like falling off the map because you lost one guy. And I don't think that same kind of thing happens if Bo can't play.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now that you've said that, it gives me pause to think, okay, well, who was Dennis Dixon's backup? And I'm not recalling who that was, but clearly they weren't getting it done. And so Ty Thompson has not shown up to this point that he's got the chops. And so we'll see, man. Like it's, as you can imagine, the Oregon fan base is all up in a tizzy about this whole Bo injury report situation. And I just think, whatever it is, we're going to go in and we're just going to hopefully wrap up, lock down on that pass game. Like I said, Utah does not air it out like a Penix does to his 3 standout wide receivers. So I think we have a chance here.
All right. Shall we bring in Jeffrey to add some color to this? Guys, let's welcome Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Mikey, we'd love to have you stick around, and I'm sure Jeffrey will have some Oregon Utah questions.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, this is an interesting game. I mean, I've been listening to all of your arguments both ways, not really arguments, but your points both ways about who to pick. And it is a really interesting game because you do get kind of too worked up about Bo Nix. And I do think Oregon has a chance without him. And as Tim always points out, Utah is a much better team at home. This is at Oregon. I don't trust Utah as much on the road. But if Bo Nix isn't playing, I think it gives Utah a better chance. But I would not count out Oregon either. This game, I keep flip-flopping back and forth. I really have a tough time picking this game. I don't know right now.
Well, Jeffrey, first off, I'll just say that, and I've said this in the chat before, but I really value and appreciate your kind of the way you break things down, because it's very clear that you pay attention to Pac-12 ball much more than anybody else who, likes to chime in, outside of the conference. And so I think that means a lot to me that you're not counting us out completely, because, you know, if we beat Washington last week, that I think is kind of the majority, or the kind of the broad stroke take going into this game, with or without, or with Bo. You know, I think that coming off of last year, most people are thinking that Utah has the edge with their defense, and that's a very fair way to look at it. And the fact that we're going into this game having just lost the UW and Bo is potentially not playing, and we still have a chance, I think that speaks volumes about the quality of the program to still be able to compete with those kind of, you know, levels of adversity.
Well, with Bo Nix, Oregon on third down is just under 50%, 30th in the country. That's going up against a Utah team that's holding third down conversions to under 35%. That's 10th in the country. Without Bo Nix, again, how many of those first downs are picked up with Bo Nix's legs? So without him being 100% healthy, I think that statistic's is gonna be a bit. I'm just saying, I'm not hoping for any injuries. I hope they all roll out there, and I think that's probably very unlikely. Along, you know, with a dinged up offensive line, probably an All-American center. I don't know, but he's gonna be a huge loss, calling out line play and just being an overall stud. I don't know. I think it might be too much of a task, because I think people wrote off Utah for the loss at the Rose Bowl. You know, every team has a bad game. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And apparently they had two, because they went and laid an egg. And I'll let Rick give a speech about how you can't let certain teams represent the Pac-12 and not actually do a good job. Going there, literally, that Utah lost on the road at the Swamp, the first game of the season, has been the fodder. You know, it's just been all the SEC has talked about, oh, well, you know, our 8th or 9th word. It's Darrell's favorite phrase, and he can invalidate the whole conference because a team lost a game, you know, on the road, first game of the season. But it has caused a lot of problems for the Pac-12. I think Utah is not that team. Utah is a very good team, and the committee says it. The committee has them at 10, and I think they're, in a lot of ways, they still might be.
When they're, what team. Are they, 9 in SP Plus?
Yeah, they're 9, and what's the other one? But and 2 major indices, they're in the top 10. And if you look at their statistics, just their general statistics across the board, they're 10th in the country on third downs. You know, on third down defense, they're 9th in the country in scoring margin. Right? Yeah, they're 10th in the country in turnover margin. They're a good team.
Sagarin has them at like 8, I think.
Yeah. You know, and like I said earlier, I'm not, I don't pay too close attention to the stats. I know that there's value in it, but I think, I mean, if you look at Vegas, right, like they've got us as a 3-point favorite in this game. Now that line changes as soon as they announce anything on Bo, right? But yeah, I hear what you're saying, Tim. I think that for anybody to go into this and think that that not only do we win, but we keep it competitive with everything stacked against us right now, I think that that's a pretty audacious and bold kind of take. But I feel like we've got depth, right? So we talked about the O-line being dinged up. We've got Jackson Power Johnson. He stepped in and was able, like, he is a stud. He's a lower class. I think he might be a sophomore. And he was when Ryan Walk went down taking over for Alex, JPJ went in there. And he's no chump, like he's no chump. He can hold his own, and so we've got the depth on the O-line, and it's, you know, obviously the big question mark is Bo. So we'll see, man. I'm gonna jump off here. I appreciate you guys having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Mikey.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
I'll be following you, Mikey.
Good luck, Ducks.
I've got to get off too, but yeah, those numbers, I mean, the numbers don't lie. And the one thing I am worried about with the Ducks are those injuries. And if those injuries come true, I think that 3, I think it's actually building in, hedging their bet that he might be hurt and he might not be in the game. So, I mean, I think part of that's already been there. I do think it'll change a little bit more once it is, well, it won't be announced. So I guess it'll be a game time thing. I think it's already factored and hedged in there. But the fact that you guys are only, a 3 or 2 point favorite at home at Autzen, is a telling
It's
sign.
very telling. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say, Chris, I really value your analysis, and I think that you do a great job on the show. I'm just gonna, I don't really have a real clear favorite. I'm leaning more conference in this pick. So I would like to see the Trojans pull it out this Saturday, and then meet them and beat them in the conference championship game. So I'm gonna end with that. Go Ducks, guys!
All right, thanks, Mikey.
Good luck.
Thanks, Mikey.
The most rational Duck fan I've ever met in my entire life.
He's awesome. Hey,
And
Tim.
listen, yeah, everyone, I've got to go too.
What if he's really Owen Toole in real life? What if he's like Mikey's like secretly like one of the crazy Duck Twitter Spaces people?
I doubt it. He's too smart for that.
You're not,
All right.
Mikey. You're awesome. We appreciate it. We're glad to have you.
And thank
Always.
you guys all. Thank you so much. Great show, everybody. Thank everyone that showed up tonight. I do have to go, but go Trojans. I'll see you
Bye,
guys
Tim.
next
We'll
week.
see you.
Bye, We'll see ya. All right. So we're missing Tim, but we got. Let's just keep rolling here. Jeffrey, what else have you got?
I think that, the Pac-12 in general, it's really interesting to think about, like, if Utah had not lost to Florida, obviously.
Hold on real quick. Thank you, Texas Buckeye, for that. We really appreciate it. We love having you in the audience, and we appreciate your helping out the show. Sorry, Jeffrey, go ahead.
If Utah had not lost to Florida, and then Oregon, didn't lose to Washington last week, and then UCLA didn't lose to Arizona, then all these teams would still have one loss. And that would have really helped the Pac-12 out, because of the fact that their chances of making the playoff would have been better, and the national narrative, which I know no one cares about on here, and I can't stand the national media, but I've said it all the time that the way they treat the Pac-12 is ridiculous. But the Pac-12 was so close this year to having it really, really good with the national media, and unfortunately, USC is the last chance, and it's going to be very tough for them to win out, which they can, but it's going to be very interesting. I told Mark probably about a month ago that I was afraid the Pac-12 was going to cannibalize itself, and it's very close to being completely done with. And it stinks, because the Pac-12 is having a really great season, but a couple of results just did not go the right way for it to be a truly great season for the Pac-12 and the national media, even though they're still having a great season in my eyes and most of the people here.
Well, in the turnaround, Jeffrey, I think you're right. And the turnaround is what's amazing, and the speed of the turnaround with so many of these programs. Like, I mean, USC spent $100 zillion and showed that you can fix things fast. But look at what's happened at Washington, what's happened in Arizona. I mean, the depths that Arizona was at are crazy, and really just pretty much everywhere except Stanford and Cal. Which is, and of course, Colorado is its own train wreck. Real quick, thank you to Sergeant Pickles. Sergeant Pickles points it out so well. Ducks fans in here are gracious. Twitter, not so much. This is huge from DeBoer, could legitimately finish 10-2. I agree with you. Yeah, the Ducks. I mean, the Dogs. The turnaround in Seattle is phenomenal. And I mean, Washington's an old school blue blood, so it's great to have them back.
Hey, Jeffrey's been getting some props by in the chat, and you're a very smart guy.
Jeffrey's awesome.
You're a very smart guy, Jeffrey, and Mikey G gave you some props as well. Is that you more so than the national media? You're learning, you understand, you're starting to understand the Pac-12, and yes, the Pac-12 has made some positive steps this year. They went on they beat two Big Ten teams. Washington State going to beat Wisconsin. And they'll tell you that, hey, look, Wisconsin is down. They fired their coach, but they're still in it for the Big 12 West. Hey, Michigan State, they're having a bad year. They were in last place in the East, but they took out Illinois, who was at the time first place in the West. So, if other media want to discount that, it is what it is. Those are two Pac-10 teams, Pac-12 teams knocking off two Big Ten teams. Yes, Mark was right. Minnesota did beat Colorado at Minnesota. I give them that. But, you take a look at Notre Dame. They took down Clemson and they took down North Carolina. Stanford took down Notre Dame. So there's a positive win. What the Pac-12 doesn't understand, and I'm talking about collectively the teams, that when you have an opportunity to go play on a national level, and when I say national level, when you go into SEC country, because that's all that matters. And I know there's a lot of guys on Discord, and there's a lot of guys in the chat that think I'm an old dude. You know what? I am an old dude, and I've seen a lot. And my goatee used to be black before Clay Helton was hired, okay? But we used to go kick SEC's ass all the time.
Regularly.
Not winning by
you've been there at Auburn. You've been there at Arkansas. You've been there all over.
If the real MVP wants to go look at history, I can rattle them off, man. I mean, they put up signs up in Fayetteville, 70-70, 70-17. We remember Revenge on the Hill. Okay, in 2006, we beat them 50-14. All right, we shut out Auburn and their new head coach, Cadillac Williams. He was the running back on that team, along with Ronnie Brown, and Williams was the quarterback. And you had incredible. You had Carlos Dansby. Okay, that was a great team. 23-0 at Auburn. Okay, War Damn Eagle was quiet all freaking day. Right, so that's why USC is respected. Is because they remember guys like Ty Guy and LW. They know how good USC is. They give USC props. The other teams in this conference, no disrespect to Oregon, but you haven't proven it yet. When USC was down for 8 years, while you had Chip Kelly and Helfrich, you didn't capitalize. USC was taken down by sanctions and their own dysfunction, and you had center stage. And you lost to Auburn. You would get derailed by Stanford. You were 3-3 in bowls, and you didn't win a national championship. Now, I sound like an old dude, right? Talking back in the day, but I'm telling you, that's why you don't get the respect from the national media. That's why you don't get respect from the SEC, because you go in there, Kyle Whittingham, 18th year, Cam Rising, you just came off of a Rose Bowl, a close loss to Ohio State, and you choke at the Swamp. Okay, you choke. Basically what it is. And that's how they see you. All right? And you can give any excuse you want, but you choked. Yeah, and I understand Oregon goes down to SEC country. It's a new coach, whole new thing, right? New quarterback. You got to keep it closer than 49-3. I mean, hey, USC had a brand new sophomore quarterback. Went down to Auburn, right? Auburn was like number 6. SEC country. They didn't win by 3 points. They didn't get blown out by 46. They won by 23. That is what gets you respect.
And Josh Pate pointed out a couple weeks ago, if that game was still being played right now, Auburn still would not have scored.
Yeah, and we went to Ohio State with a freshman quarterback, Matt Barkley. And you Buckeyes remember that game. You remember that last 2-minute drive, just like 1,000 cuts to your forehead. And Matt Barkley goes in, and what do we win? Was it 18-15? Yeah. And now, and the year before, the sweater vest came out to LA. I think we bitch slapped you. You were number 5, and we took.
Oh yeah, that was ugly.
35.
The sweater vest is not have fun.
And I'm not even bringing up Nebraska.
I think Mark still holds a grudge for that one too.
I'm not bringing up Nebraska, how we beat them home and home. I'm not going to bring up Virginia Tech and how we went to Maryland at FedEx Field and beat a good Virginia Tech team. I'm not going to bring up all the Rose Bowl wins. I'm not going to bring up 55-19. You know what? That's how you get respect. And USC built that. They built that brand. And yes, it has been dormant for 10 years, but Lincoln Riley and the administration and Mike Bone and Carol Folt and the Board of Trustees have just basically said, we're all in. And now we're back. And guess what? By chance or by whatever, we're the last hope for the Pac-12. So that's full circle, baby. The circle of suck has come full circle, and now it's on USC's shoulders. Love or hate us, it's up to us. And that's
it's something that actually I'll go point out that I think that you see with the Big Ten and the SEC is that when one of their teams is down, they're better at having the others step up. You know, when Michigan was down, I mean, Ohio State has been stepped up for 20 years, but when Michigan was down, Ohio State was stepped up. Wisconsin's been up. Northwestern even has stood up. Iowa's done well. And with the SEC, they've got sort of 6 teams, probably 6 of their 12 that are, kind of rotate in being decent, and 6 of their 12 that are just abysmal and rotate continually with what degree of abysmal you are. But they're better at having those teams step up, and it's something that the Pac-12 didn't do, and it's why the last few years when SC was down and UCLA was down and Washington was down and Oregon never filled the gap. Washington, even with Peterson, they made the playoffs, but they didn't fill the gap. So I'll tell you, Kalen DeBoer, though, that's a guy who's never done anything at any level other than win. And I think we're seeing that in Washington. Dan Lanning, same thing. He's awesome. He's bringing it to Oregon. I hope he gets more success. And Kyle Whittingham, people forget, took a G5 program and literally just took them to the Rose Bowl. And I mean, when you think about what's happened with what Gary Patterson did and what Kyle Whittingham did, like those are 2 guys that were program builders, and enormous kudos to them for that.
The Pac-12 has a chance to take it to the next level, and that's at bowl season. So,
all right. Hey, let's real quick. We've got Jeffrey. Anything else?
I mean, I'm just basically here just talking about some of the games. I mean, just to me, the Pac-12, like I said, still having a really great season, and nothing should be discounted from that. It's been a lot of fun to watch the Pac-12 this year. I mean, even like you said earlier, 6 teams are ranked. I mean, all the top 4 teams were getting the most love for most of the season because they were in the playoff picture. But even Washington and Oregon State and Washington State, a lot of fun teams to watch. And I've really enjoyed watching the Pac-12 this year because they've been much improved, and it's good to watch because you don't want one of the Power 5 conferences to be really bad. You want all of them to be really good, and it makes football a lot more interesting.
Yes, especially when they got 6 teams ranked. We'll take it. Hey,
Yep. Thank
you so much. Glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad I was able to be on it. Thank you for all the people that said kind words about me. I don't think, that my knowledge is that great, but thanks for saying all the kind
Well,
of
it is.
anyway.
If you guys have not subscribed to Jeffrey, he's at Only Talk Sports. We'll put the link in the chat. Jeffrey's awesome, and you should absolutely be subscribed to his channel.
Keep on doing
Thanks,
your good
Tony.
research there.
Keep doing the good stuff.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Right on. And good luck to your Hoosiers.
Yeah, hopefully maybe they'll win a game this week. Maybe they will.
Fingers crossed. All right, we'll talk to you later. All right, guys, we're going to add in Michael and Buckeye Mike. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tony. Hey, Rick. How you guys doing tonight, sir?
Good. How are you guys? What do you guys think about the games coming up this week?
I'm wondering how much revenge factors they're going to have for both Oregon and USC, considering, especially with Oregon, considering what happened twice in a 3-week stretch last year with Utah pretty much having their way with the 2 blowouts last year in the 3-week stretch. Wonder if they got that in the back of their mind and what Dan Lanning's telling them this week about it. And also the same with USC, what UCLA did to them last year too.
Well, I know USC has not forgotten that, although a lot of the players from that are gone, thankfully. What do you guys think? I mean, I've heard reports out of Oregon that they are fired up for some revenge, but we'll see if without Bo Nix they can do it.
Yeah, I mean that's
or maybe they'll have Bo Nix and be fine. We don't know yet, and I wouldn't believe anything on Twitter over not seeing number 10 there.
So because when I called in last week, I was completely unprepared because I remember asking you what the games were because I came in so late. So I actually came prepared today.
Nice. We're always glad to have you. What are you talking about? We're always glad to have you.
So give me Washington State by 3 over Arizona.
Do you think that's gonna be a good game? I think that's gonna be a good game. What do you think about that?
Arizona, in my opinion, still stinks, but
they do.
I agree.
True, David.
Wazoo is kind of proving themselves, in my opinion, by beating somebody like Wisconsin, a mid-tier Big Ten team, even though Wisconsin sucks. Give me Oregon State by 17.
Okay, I like that one.
Give me Stanford And this was a toss-up for me. Originally, I said Stanford by 13. I've come down to Stanford by 3.
Even without a tree? Or with, I guess they have a Vichy tree, don't they? We gotta give the Vichy tree a little bit of credit.
This might cause an uproar. Give me UCLA by 10.
Okay, I like a bold prediction. I like the boldness.
Give me Washington by 21 because it's Colorado.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's pretty good. In fact, I might even move that one north.
Yeah, I was thinking
so bad.
Yeah. And then give me Utah by 12.
Oh, now, Mike, what do you think? Are we gonna have what are we gonna see with Bo next year? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. It depends on.
I agree with you on that. I have no idea.
It depends on what exactly happened, because whatever happened, he can't throw a deep ball.
Mm-mm.
You look at that Hail Mary, it was like what, 5 yards short of his wide receiver.
It looked half-hearted.
Yeah. And then that was because LBC touched on one of my questions about USC being the best chance for the playoff for the Pac. So I'm going to check that one off. My biggest question is basically, how good really is Bo Nix? Bo Nix transferred from Auburn. He came into Oregon, beat out Anthony for the starting position. So is Bo Nix actually as good as some people thought? Like, I thought he could have ended up winning a Heisman or at least go to New York at some point. Like while he was at Auburn. At least definitely go to New York. Or is it the fact that Anthony is not as good as people think and there was just so much wrong last year and that's why they beat us?
I think it could be both. What do you guys think?
I think that he has I think that he has played well. I think that he has done I think that Oregon has done a very good job of having him get the ball out quickly and also taking care of him. I think there was like a point, I forget what point it was in the season, but there was like a very long time where they had only given up like 1 or 0 sacks for like 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. Like, it helps to play. I think that he has been playing well, and I think that he is good, and I don't think you can take anything away from him. But it's also a lot easier to play quarterback when you have a great offensive line, and he does. And there's like, I think it's like 4 redshirt senior offensive linemen, like multiple of which should be going to the league. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like he's a solid player on a solid team. I certainly don't think anyone should disparage him for like poor games that he had multiple years ago, because he hasn't been that guy this year. I think that he's played very, very well.
I was a big Bo Nix detractor when he transferred from Auburn to Oregon, but I'll have to credit Kenny Dillingham. The offense that he's put together along with that offensive line has let Bo Nix flourish. Plus the offensive weapons that he has, totally an upgrade from Auburn, the situation he was at. And it's no fluke. I mean, up until this last game, 10 games of data, and Bo Nix, like I mentioned earlier, over 500 yards rushing. He's throwing it at almost a 74% completion rate. He's got 2,774 passing yards with 24 TDs, only 5 interceptions. And that was an issue with Bo. And I don't know back at Auburn if he just had to force things because the offensive talent around him wasn't there and he had that pressure. But then you add in 14 rushing TDs. Bo Nix has done a fabulous job at Oregon. And I hope to God that he can go against Utah, because it'd be a shame if he wasn't able. He's not going to be 100%, but hopefully he's good enough to give Oregon a chance to compete with Utah.
Yeah, I think he's better than people give him credit for. I mean, I was a little bit apprehensive, but I believe, Josh Pate, all kinds of people that I think are really smart were on the Bo Nix train at Auburn and thought that Auburn had derailed and Bo Nix was sort of where the tracks used to be. And so when he went to Oregon, I thought, okay, let's see it. He's probably what they need. Tyler Shuck wasn't getting it done. He did it, and it was great. The other thing I would say about the Ohio State game, I always believe, especially with first games, you take them with a grain of salt. You don't write them off. You don't pretend they didn't happen, but you take them with a grain of salt and you say, okay, sometimes the first game can be tough. And I think that Ohio State had a first game that was tough. And so, just as we don't write off Ohio State for losing to Oregon, we don't write off Oregon for losing to Georgia, and Utah can still kind of go down and sort of stink a little bit in the swamp and for one game and still be the number 9 SP Plus team, just as Ohio State last year was one of the better teams in the country, even though they lost to Oregon.
True.
I will say.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna say this about Bo Nix. You guys said he underthrew and stuff like that, but didn't you guys say he got banged up last week at the end of the game too?
Yeah, he was definitely. No way he should have been in there, probably.
Because I have seen him play at Auburn. Yeah, he was not good, but he does have an arm, and I had seen him throw the ball over around 60 yards, and that's what I was thinking. I had seen some of the highlights from the game last week and stuff like that.
Well, and the other thing is I think he was trying to pull a Jake Haener. With that, like, if you guys remember when Jake Haener beat UCLA, he couldn't even stand up straight, and he's somehow just throwing just nailing dimes, just amazing.
Yeah, but I gotta ask you this: so, how impressed have you guys been with Michael Penix this year? And is he the Pac-12 newcomer of the year, you think, or rookie of the year? If you guys had to vote,
I think that'd probably be more likely to be Caleb Williams, or Bo Nix. But he's certainly been great. I mean, he's exactly what they needed. And Kalen DeBoer is exactly what they needed. They've got the receivers, they got the line, they've got a pretty good defense. They're cursed. They are cursed in the desert. What was it? 2000 the last time they won at Arizona State? I think I was in college the last time they won at Arizona State. No, I'm not. But no, literally.
Numbers wise, isn't his numbers better than Penix? I mean, better than Williams and Nix. His numbers better though.
He has more passing yards, but his QBR ratings just under 80. Caleb Williams is 84.9, and Bo Nix is 89. Penix 25 TDs, 6 interceptions with 2 rushing TDs. You look at Caleb Williams; he's thrown for just over 3,000 yards, 31 TDs, 2 interceptions, and he has 6 rushing TDs. So, but Penix looked great. He had a great game against Oregon. I think what lines up for Caleb Williams, he's got a big game against UCLA, Notre Dame, and possibly a Pac-12 championship game. So we'll see in the games that matter.
No, I was just wondering, but another thing I'm trying to figure out also, Tony and Rick, and welcome back to him, by the way, is that being that he was more mobile in Indiana but had the injury factors and stuff like that, do you think the boards might have put the brake on him so he doesn't scramble as much and rush more so he can have a full season?
I think he has better tools around him than he had at Indiana.
No, hands down, yeah, he does. But I just wonder because he did scramble quite a bit and stuff too while he's in Indiana. And I just wonder if Caleb DeBoer said, you can run if you want to, but we prefer you not to, so we can keep you healthy for this whole season.
I don't know. I'd have to defer to the Washington folks to know that.
All right. I am going to get out.
Hey, Michael, thanks for calling in. It was great to have you.
Thanks,
all right, guys.
Hey, good luck to your Boilermakers this weekend.
Yeah, get ready for the crazy last chaos of the last 2 weeks of the season.
It's going to be wild. I love it. We'll talk to you soon. Who does Purdue play this weekend? Does anybody know?
While someone looks that up, I just want to say I've had enough of chaos lately.
I thought you did not. I thought you didn't have any recollection of the games that happened last week.
I'd like to go build a time machine to 1 week ago and turn off the chaos if we can.
Isn't your basketball team undefeated though?
Yeah, we're real good. We don't have to talk about that right now, but
they're real good.
They played Northwestern and Indiana, so Purdue's looking good to win the Big Ten West.
Okay, so Purdue.
Please.
Can we just have a moment to laugh, and then we'll get off the Big Ten? But can we have a moment to laugh about how funny it would be if Purdue somehow won the Big Ten West and then won the Big Ten?
Okay, that's not going to happen. That's not funny. But it's funny.
Chaos. That's about the chaos you can get.
By the way,
they're not going to.
My one other Big Ten observation I've been laughing about. While the Pac-12 has been having to deal with the onslaught of the Tennessee people and their nonsense, the people who should be fighting that battle are the Michigan and Ohio State fans, but they're both so completely confident that they're going to win that they think that it's just completely irrelevant to them. And one of them is going to get hit in the face by a 2x4 and be unprepared to deal with the Tennessee nonsense. And they're like, well, LSU has beat the Little Sisters of the Poor, so they should be in the playoff too, kind of. And one of Michigan or Ohio State is going to lose their minds in 2 weeks, and I'm just going to make popcorn and watch.
First of all,
and then we'll get off the Big Ten. Sorry, go to answer this, and then we'll change. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. Think about it, guys. You know it's true.
If LSU wins the SEC championship, they deserve to go.
I agree with you on that, actually. But then the others don't.
Because if you think about it, Georgia's going to be at 1. I guarantee you. If they lose, they're going to pull a last year. They're going to drop to 3 or 4. The winner of Ohio State, Michigan, and I want to go on record, and I probably will have to go on record on Mark's show, that the weather may be a factor in that game. But if we lose that game, the weather is not the reason that we lost the game. I am sick and tired of people saying Ohio State fans blame the weather.
Okay, so first of all, I do want to throw out 2 things. One, it was basically like a hurricane, and 2, you still won. It wasn't like you lost. But I do like to tease them. I think people like to tease them because it does bother the Ohio State people so much.
Yeah. If you guys weren't so angry on Twitter, people wouldn't push it. But
I don't get
pushing that button.
Yeah, because
getting angry.
I looked at it and I was like, well, guys, they won.
Guys,
I mean, I do like
wins.
Yeah, you won. It was like a hurricane. I do like to tease them because they're like, but it was windy and we didn't win by as much.
Come on.
You're totally right. You're totally right. It's so funny.
You find a way to win no matter what the weather is.
Yeah, you won. You won by a whole lot more than Georgia beat Mizzou. I think you won by more than Georgia beat Kent State. Speaking of Ohio.
You want to talk about weather costing Ohio State games? Uncle Lou, on one of his videos earlier this week, said that Ohio State fans have been blaming the weather and battling the weather since 1950 because of the Snow Bowl, the 9-3 Michigan game in probably 6 inches of snow.
Now, I love Uncle Lou more than anybody, but if you're going to let Uncle Lou get under your skin, you're going to have a very rough time.
Oh no, I've learned when he's putting his persona on and he's trolling, trying to be funny, and when he's like dead serious.
He's great. We love him. Anyway, all right, sorry. I didn't mean to change subject. I got to time myself out for that probably. By the way, we only need to time out one person. That was great. It was perfect. Anyway, so guys, why don't we? I think we're actually longer than we thought we'd be tonight. So why don't we wrap up? Any final thoughts, Mike? What are your final thoughts going into this week for the Pack?
I hope to go 6-0, and
I like your pick. You got good picks, by the way. You come back and bring them back next week.
Don't hold me to the points because I don't usually watch that much of the Pack.
You know, it's the Pack. We don't hold ourselves to points either. We just do straight up because, as we said, with Ohio State, winning is winning.
As far as this week, I think the key to UCLA winning is going to be DTR, which, by the way, favorite.
Can somebody time him out?
Pac-12 player.
He's actually great. He's actually a cool guy too. But
It's been fun. It's been fun to watch him compared to, like, not just on the field. Some people don't like the way he acts. I find him entertaining. But like off the field in interviews, just like a quick shout out to him in terms of like how he acts, like post game or midweek and whatnot, like talking. It's, again, like 2 or 3 years ago, I never would have thought he would be the guy. But he has like grown up quite a bit. And you can see it's like a way he went from being like a, high school kid that played 1 year high school quarterback before playing in college to like a confident young dude. And some people don't like that aspect of him, but it's been fun to watch him grow up, and hopefully he goes out in a good way come Saturday.
I got one last question.
Go for it.
3 letters for you. ECU. What happens, and I think Mark and I and a bunch of other people were talking about this the other night, what happens if OSU, Michigan, or as the radio likes to call them around here, meat chicken, what happens if that game's like 35-31, 31-28, to where the loser just loses by enough, they just drop to the 4 spot, and then TCU wins out, Georgia wins out. That's going to push Tennessee out, but that wouldn't only cause a problem for, or let's just say LSU wins, because that would cause a whole mess.
Well, one, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not going to worry about that until they actually win, because that's a little bit like there could be an asteroid that we haven't seen. It could crash into Ohio Stadium and ricochet into the Rose Bowl, and then oh my God.
Let me offer my perspective there based on that scenario. Which, hey, these are just scenarios.
Yeah.
But if you have Georgia, let's say Georgia winning, and you have Ohio State winning, they're the 2. And I think you said in your example that TCU wins out, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you have Tennessee and Michigan. Michigan, in my opinion, would be dropped out of the top 4. And it would be between Tennessee and possibly a USC, because Michigan would have a loss, and really they don't have a strength of schedule. The only quality win they would have would be Penn State, and they would not be a division winner, and they would not be in the Pac-12 championship. And if you had to compare them head-to-head to Tennessee, Tennessee has beat Alabama, and they have a better win against
Bama.
Ole Miss. I'm sorry. Tennessee beat LSU, and they beat Alabama. Correct. So, and it's quite possible that Ohio State could be in that same position, and that's what Tony was bringing up. Is you guys got to watch out, because USC has an opportunity to play Notre Dame at home, much like Ohio State did. There's a common opponent, right? And that common opponent also lost.
Who lost to Stanford?
Exactly.
And
Marshall. So
and should have lost to Cal.
So Ohio State.
Will like comes back from like puking in the toilet from the flu just to give us a glare for the Cal comment. I love it.
So Ohio State has a little bit better of a resume.
Love you, Will.
Than Michigan, but unfortunately, because Michigan State and Wisconsin are down, there's not another really quality win in conference. It's Penn State, and you guys have both sucker punched Penn State. How other than that, what is it? So that's going to be interesting to see how things shake out if TCU can run the table and if USC can run the table. Who knows?
It's going to be interesting. Although first, we're taking it one game at a time. First, we got to win one in the Rose Bowl. Then we'll worry about the next.
And it's not likely that USC runs the table. And as unlikely as that is, it's far more unlikely that LSU is going to beat Georgia. So let's stop that ridiculous thought anyway.
It's really not worth wasting any time in this show talking about LSU beating Georgia.
Right.
Until it happens.
So is it more chaos if Michigan beats Ohio State rather than Ohio State beats Michigan?
Depending on which fan base you're polling.
So, okay, Georgia wins out, so they're in at 1. Michigan wins. Makes me
okay. We'll do one round of these, and then we got to move on.
I have a Pac-12 centric question after this, but go for it, and then I'll ask my question.
TCU wins, and whoever wins the Pac-12 would be my guess.
It'll be interesting to see.
Right,
I don't know. I think there's a lot of dominoes are going to fall with the Pac-12. The dominoes are going to fall this weekend, and we're going to know all kinds of stuff. So we'll see after that. It'll be fun.
A lot of football that has to be played. Yep, you got to let it play.
So I have a question.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us, though.
You're welcome.
And come back next week. Bring your picks again. We'll see it. We'll see how you did. We'll compare them.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, thanks. You too.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for the group, just in case it happens, just to get ahead of it. Hypothetically, if there were 4 teams that all had the same conference record and they were all tied, and one of those teams beat the other 3, should that team win the tiebreaker, or is there another better way to decide? And what is it?
The problem is the second tiebreaker, right? So
I'm just asking. I'm not naming names of teams. I'm just asking hypothetically. You know, if there's a 4-way tie between 4 teams and they all have the same conference record, and one of those teams has beat the other 3,
which would be, I mean, so like for
So, for instance,
no, because nobody can beat the other 3.
So, if UCLA finishes 7-2, along with USC, Utah, and Washington,
correct?
Hypothetically, UCLA would have beaten USC, Washington, and Utah. Would
no, because the problem is USC and Washington didn't play.
Right, but why should that? So this is why that's silly to me. Is that if you hypothetically played each other, regardless of the result, now all of a sudden the fact that we beat you matters. But
yeah, I didn't write the rules. You know who probably did? The people
I know,
that
but
the Pac-12 refs wrote the rules.
That's why
people
I'm
that
asking,
think Michael Mothershed is qualified
sense.
to work for the conference wrote the rules.
I'm just asking if it makes sense. I'm not asking how it is.
Nothing about the Pac-12 rules makes sense.
It doesn't.
It's the Pac-12.
It doesn't make sense.
Remember, and you know who's going to come officiate that game? Mothershed or Duddy. So nothing makes sense. You're right. Oh, it's a good question, though. All right, Will, any final thoughts here as we get ready to wrap up?
Oh, wait. Okay,
for you.
I'm done with these SEC teams, man.
Feds, Will.
I'm so I have like no sound reduction in this room, but I'm so done with these SEC teams, man. Like, I do not want to see 2 SEC teams get into the playoff this year. It just sickens me to no end. You know, in 2004, we went to a top 10 Tennessee team with Ty Willingham as a coach, and we beat Tennessee in Neyland Stadium, 17-13, with
Ty Willingham. I mean, that's like if you only were playing with 10 guys at the same time too.
Yeah. So I'm done with these SEC fans saying that they own the rest of college football.
Historically, I mean, that one unfortunate Manti Te'o game aside, you guys have rarely had trouble dispatching with the SEC.
Is it true that Ty was on the 4th tee when that game kicked off? Is that true? I heard a rumor of that. What was going on?
He was coming in on the 18th, Tim. He was almost ready.
Okay. So they're exaggerating. My bad.
They're totally exaggerating. He was coming in off the 18th green. Will, thanks. Hey,
God
Will,
bless
good
his
luck.
soul.
Beat the Jesuits this weekend.
You better come to LA 8-3. That's all I got to say.
You
Yeah,
better
don't let that
win
Will
the
get
Rose
broken
Bowl.
bit. Don't
You
let us
better
down.
win the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we'll see you, Will. Thanks. All right, TBM, what are your final thoughts here as you get ready for the big week?
I've talked enough. Go Bruins. I'll email my picks to you guys next week from the undisclosed location in South America.
All right, we can't wait for it. We'll talk to you soon.
Chris, have a great trip. Happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you when you get back.
See you, man. Thanks,
And
guys.
remember the cyanide. Hey, if they get you, remember that little cyanide pill they gave you, okay, Chris?
Right.
All right.
All right. Final thoughts, huh?
Final thoughts.
Thanks to all of our viewers, those who called in, all your comments. We appreciate you checking out the Pac-12 show. Tony, unbelievable. Thank you for breaking down what is the craziness of the UC Board of Regents and their upcoming meeting with UCLA on the decision whether or not to prevent them from going to the Big Ten. You took the 9 pages of nonsense and put it in concise information. Look forward to your show on Friday, breaking that further.
I did what I do best. I took their 9 pages and made it like 15.
Yeah. So great job on that. It's going to be a great weekend in the Pac-12. A lot of great games as we went through, and it's rivalry week. This is it's great to see USC and UCLA hitting it off. UCLA at 16, USC at 7. It's a game that's going to mean something. 2 great quarterbacks, great coaches, and it's going to come down to big plays, and that always happens. And it's going to come down to a player that you probably didn't think was going to make a big play when it counted. So that's the exciting thing about this crosstown rivalry. One of the most one of the better rivalries out there because we share the same city 12 miles apart. So it's not 2 different states such as Oregon and Washington or Michigan and Ohio State. Yes, those are awesome rivalries as well. But when you are playing in 7-on-7 leagues, you're playing against these kids in high school and you see a lot of them, it means something. And you've got families and houses divided between Bruins and Trojans. And we know who rules LA. Yeah, UCLA might play in the Rose Bowl. They rent it. We freaking own it. We own the Rose Bowl. So a little history to those in the chat before I leave. We've won 25 Rose Bowls out of 34. Okay. So that's a pretty good, goddamn good winning decision. Just to let you know, the closest that UCLA gets to winning a Rose Bowl is actually playing in their home stadium. It was 1986, January 1st, the last time they won a Rose Bowl. Lionel Richie's Dancing on the Ceiling was the #1 hit back then. There's probably a lot of you in the chat going, Jesus, 1986, my mom and dad weren't even married yet. Yeah, that's how long it's been.
I don't think Will's parents were born yet.
And a little trivia for you. Troy Aikman didn't even transfer from Oklahoma to UCLA yet. Matt Stevens was the quarterback, and he is like older than me, and he's on the radio broadcast. He does the color for, and he hates getting asked that question or being the trivia answer. But that's what we're talking about, the difference between USC and UCLA. For all of you Midwesters or SECers that don't know about Pac-12, hey, LBC is giving you a history lesson today. Listen and you'll learn something. Good luck to your teams, and we'll see you next week.
Fight on, LBC. And thank you to Buckeye Mike. Buckeye Mike, thanks for calling in. We love having you, and we want to come back. We'll test your predictions next week. It'll be fun. We'd love to have you back. Tim, it's the game for the victory bell.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. As much as we talk about defense or lack of defense, etc., you're going to see fireworks. You're looking at 2 teams, USC and UCLA, on explosive plays of over 30 yards or more. USC has 68. That's second in the country. And then you have UCLA with 62, which is 5th in the country. So there's been a debate. They keep talking about, the SEC gets 2 teams in there. What if we have a rematch of Michigan, Ohio State? Look, why don't we let conferences play each other? Because no one knows, is Michigan's defense that good, or is it they're playing some really bad offenses in the Big Ten West? Is USC's defense that bad? Oregon and UCLA's defense is that bad? Or are we playing some pretty damn good quarterbacks and some great offenses here in the Pac-12? We really don't know. I got an idea. How about we play each other and then you guys can shut up if you beat us instead of saying, oh, you guys aren't good enough. We're going to rematch 3 or 4 more people because you're just not good enough. Why don't you play us and then we'll see who's better? Because we keep hearing these crazy scenarios that are leaving the ACC out, leaving the Big 12 out, leaving the Pac-12 out, and try to stick a second team in from a conference. It just reeks of the fact that you guys just probably don't want to play some really good teams. And again, if I was the Big 10 champ or the SEC champ, I wouldn't want to play someone I already beat or someone didn't win in the conference. I want to play someone from other conferences to say, hey, we are the champs. We went out and beat everybody. So if you want to be a champion, go play somebody. It'd be refreshing for once. And the Pac-12 is ready this year.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Well, guys, this is a crazy game for me. So when I was at USC, I was in a group called the Trojan Knights. So we're like the ones that have to sit up all night in front of Tommy Trojan, guard him from pranks, everything like that. And, did lots of stuff on campus. And this is a special week for USC. So I'm excited. I've been thinking about all the USC kids that this is their for a lot of them, it's their first time they're going to go into the Rose Bowl. And I mean, it's a magical place. And when USC plays UCLA and it's for the victory bell, it's everything about LA. And, some of that's good. Some of it's not nearly as intense. See, when I came as a freshman, I grew up in Michigan. And so I was unprepared for the LA. They're kind of chill. The thing about USC and UCLA is at the end of the day, they're neighbors and they're friends. And even though they're, bitter rivals during the game, it's not the degree of hate that you see from other teams, which is why when USC is going to the Big Ten, they're coming along with their partner in crime. And it's why you hear about USC and UCLA saying, you know what, we'll put our tennis teams on the charter jet together because they're partners in crime. They're bitter rivals during the game and they're partners in crime afterwards. And it's a fun game. So guys, take a look and watch it. There's no more incredible sight. SC in the red, UCLA in the blue. The sun is going to set over the San Gabriel Mountains as it descends over the Arroyo, and day turns into night with that spectacular LA sunlight. It's actually just light refraction from the smog, but it's beautiful. And enjoy the game. And then afterwards, Utah, Oregon. It's been a magical year for the conference, and we really appreciate your letting us sort of join you on the journey. And we want to thank Mark and the whole Voice of College Football team for everybody for letting us have this little corner to talk about the Pac-12. And all of you guys who called in, all of you guys who chat, you guys are amazing. And that's why we're able to do this. And we really appreciate your being with us. So I'm just going to wrap it up as it should be wrapped up this week with a SOUTHERNCALIFORNA, Southern California. Fight on, everybody. Beat the Bruins.